3 days after Ellen's funeral, my son's wife smiled across my kitchen table and said, "She's gone now, Walter, and we need the beach house more than you do." By the time this was over, that same smile was gone. A lender from Raleigh had frozen $612,000. A title officer had pushed the keys back across a table. My son Daniel had finally said the name of the woman coaching him, and Marissa Pike learned that a house can look empty and still be guarded. But before the closing table, there was my kitchen on Ann Street. My name is Walter Pike. I am 70 years old. I spent 43 years keeping marine engines alive. Shrimp boats, ferries, tugboats, pilot boats. If it had diesel in its belly and salt on its skin, I probably had my hands inside it. I can hear a sick engine at idle. I can tell you which bearing is failing before the gauge twitches. That morning I heard the same thing in Marissa's voice. Not fear exactly. Rehearsal. A bad engine knocks before it quits. I don't argue with noise. I measure it. So I sat there and turned Ellen Pike's wedding ring in my palm. I had taken it off her hand myself after the service. I had not put it away yet. I could not make myself do that. Daniel sat to my left. He is 41 years old. He had my shoulders and his mother's mouth. That day he used neither. He stared down at a pale scratch in the kitchen floor. Marissa sat across from me with both hands folded. She wore a cream sweater and that careful face people use when they want money. Her smile did not reach her eyes. Her parents were there too, Paul and Linda Harrow. They had driven in from New Bern before lunch. Nobody had asked them to come. Linda had brought a casserole. She set it on the counter like that earned her a vote. The house was too quiet. Ellen's chair by the window was empty. Her blue mug still sat near the sink. Nobody touched it. Marissa looked at Daniel first. He swallowed. Then she looked back at me. "We're not trying to be insensitive," she said. That is a sentence people use before they are insensitive. I looked at her hands. No shaking. Fresh nails. Wedding ring turned outward. She wanted the room to see she belonged. "Daniel and I talked," she said. "We think it's time to be practical." I said, "Practical about what?" "The Atlantic Beach place." Daniel shifted in his chair. I kept turning Ellen's ring. Slow. Once around my thumb. Then again. The Atlantic Beach house sat on East Fort Macon Road. Weathered cedar siding, white railings, 2 bedrooms upstairs, 1 little room off the back where Ellen kept beach towels and old paperbacks. I bought it for $485,000. That was in 2009, when half the county was scared to buy anything. Last appraisal put it at $1,800,000. Ellen never called it an investment. She called it our breathing place. Marissa leaned forward. We already planned around it. There it was. Not hoped, not asked. Planned. I let that word sit. Daniel rubbed his forehead. He still had not looked at me. Marissa kept going. "The clinic expansion has a timeline. We can't keep waiting." Her wellness clinic sat in Morehead City. White paint, green plants, soft music. She sold supplements, light therapy, cold plunges, and confidence. I had never understood the business, but I understood rent. I understood debt, too. I said, "What do you need from me?" "The keys," she said. "For now. We can discuss title later." Paul Harrow cleared his throat. He had been a real estate broker once. He liked rooms where people owed him answers. "It makes sense, Walter," Paul said. "You're alone now. That house is sitting there." Alone. That word hit harder than he knew. I did not show it. Linda crossed her legs. Ellen would want family to use it. I looked at her then. Ellen had liked Linda about as much as she liked a backed-up sink. She was polite about it. Ellen was polite about most things, but she had eyes that missed nothing. I said, "You knew what Ellen wanted?" Linda blinked. Marissa stepped in quick. We all loved her. No one spoke for a second. The refrigerator clicked on. The little motor hummed under the counter. I knew motors. That one had another year left, maybe 2. Marissa opened her purse and took out a folded sheet. She slid it across the table. "It's just a simple occupancy agreement," she said. "Temporary. It would help us move fast." I did not touch the paper. Daniel whispered, "Dad, just look at it." His voice had rust on it. That hurt me more than Marissa did. I looked at him until he finally lifted his eyes. He held them on me for half a second. Then he dropped them again. That was when I knew something deeper was under the floor. You have to understand something about my son. Daniel Pike is not a cruel man. Weak, yes, proud when he should be humble, afraid of conflict, but not cruel. Marissa had cruelty in her. Linda had practice. Paul had appetite. Daniel had fear. There is a difference. I picked up the paper then. 1 page. Big margins. Too simple. No lawyer's letterhead, no parcel number, no legal description, just soft words around a hard grab. Marissa watched my face. I gave her nothing. "I'll look at the papers," I said. She smiled wider. "Good. We need the keys by Friday." It was Tuesday. Daniel's knee bounced under the table. I folded the paper once and set it beside Ellen's mug. "Friday is soon." "It has to be," Marissa said. "We already planned around it." Again, that phrase had a load on it. I could feel it. In my old line of work, you learn when a bolt is carrying more than it should. Paul said, "Walter, nobody wants a fight." I didn't offer one. He leaned back, his mouth tightened. Linda gave a little laugh. "You're still sharp, aren't you?" "Still." I put Ellen's ring flat in my palm. It shone dull in the kitchen light. 50 years of marriage had worn the inside smooth. Marissa saw it. Her eyes flicked there and away. "Of course you are," she said, "but grief does strange things." There it was again, the first plank in the bridge they meant to build, old, grieving, alone, confused. As if 43 years of keeping boats alive in hard water left me unable to read 1 page. I stood up, slowly, not for drama. "My knees take a second now. I need a handkerchief," I said. Nobody moved. I walked to Ellen's recipe drawer. It was the second drawer by the pantry. She kept recipe cards there, church bulletins, rubber bands, a little pair of scissors, and folded handkerchiefs she still ironed. I opened it. On top lay her lemon pound cake card. Under that was a white handkerchief with blue stitching. Behind it, tucked flat against the back, sat a sealed blue envelope. I saw it. I knew it. I did not touch it. Ellen had written my name on it 2 years earlier, Walter, in her narrow hand. Marissa could not see into the drawer from where she sat. Daniel could have, if he had looked up. He did not. I took the handkerchief and closed the drawer. When I sat back down, Ellen's ring was still in my left hand. Marissa said, "Do you know where the Atlantic beach keys are?" "Yes." "Could we take them today, just to start getting estimates?" "No." Her face held, but only just. Paul leaned forward. "Why not?" "Because I said I'd look at the papers." "That's not really an answer." "It's the one I have." Daniel said, "Dad, please." That word did something to me. Please. When Daniel was 6, he used that word for one more cast off the dock. When he was 16, he used it for a used truck I should not have bought. I bought it anyway, $2,900, cash. He wrapped it around a pine tree 8 months later and walked away with a sore shoulder. Ellen had cried in the laundry room where he could not see. I said, "Daniel, are you asking me for the keys?" He opened his mouth. Marissa answered for him. "We both are." I kept my eyes on my son. "Daniel?" His throat moved. "We need them." "Need them how?" Marissa's chair scraped. "Walter, this is not an interrogation." "No," I said. "It's my kitchen." That ended the first round. Paul stood up first. Linda gathered her purse. Marissa took the folded paper back, then thought better of it and pushed it toward me again. "Keep it," she said. "Show someone if you want." "I will." She did not like that. At the back door, Linda touched Daniel's arm. That was small. It told me plenty. She held him there with 2 fingers and whispered something close to his ear. He nodded. I watched through the kitchen window as they walked to the driveway. Paul's black Lincoln was parked behind Daniel's truck. Marissa stood by the passenger door and talked fast with her hands. Daniel looked toward my house once, then he got in. When they left, I stood in the kitchen for a while. I could hear tires on Ann Street. I could hear a dog barking 2 houses down. I could hear my own breath. I picked up Ellen's mug and washed it. That was the first thing I did after they asked for her house. I washed her mug and set it on the towel. Then I opened the recipe drawer again. The blue envelope waited where she had put it. I did not open it. Not yet. I took Ellen's ring upstairs instead. Her sewing room faced the side yard. The room still smelled like cotton cloth and cedar blocks. Her machine sat under its cover. A half-pinned curtain panel lay folded beside it. She had been making curtains for the beach house, pale yellow. She said the upstairs bedroom needed mourning in it. I sat in her chair and held the ring. You might think a man knows what grief will feel like by 70. He does not. You know loss. You know funerals. You know hospital chairs and casseroles. Then the house goes quiet, and you find out grief has tools of its own. It takes the ordinary things first. Her slippers by the bed, her grocery list, the second toothbrush. Gone. I sat there until dark came up the windows. Then I went downstairs and read Marissa's paper. It was worse than sloppy. It was hungry. The agreement said I would allow Daniel and Marissa Pike full access to the Atlantic Beach property. It said they could make improvements at their discretion. It said they could represent a pending family transfer to financial institutions. That phrase had teeth. Pending family transfer. No date, no price, no lawyer, no witness line for me, but a notary block on the back. Someone expected more pages later. I set it on the table and wrote the time on a yellow legal pad. 7:42 p.m. Tuesday. Marissa requested keys. Document includes pending family transfer. I have kept logs my whole life. On boats, a log saves you from guessing. Oil pressure at 6 in the morning. Coolant temperature at noon. Fuel burned. Vibration, weather. Repairs. Men lie after trouble starts. Numbers usually do not. Ellen used to tease me about it. She said I'd write down the date if a cloud passed over the sun. I wrote down the date. The next morning, I drove to Raleigh. I left Beaufort at 6:10 a.m. I took Highway 70 west with a thermos of coffee and the agreement in a folder. My truck had 218,409 miles on it. I knew because I reset the trip meter after every oil change. At Kinston, Daniel texted me, "Dad, please don't make this harder. You're not thinking clearly right now." I pulled into a gas station and read it twice, not thinking clearly. There it was in writing. I did not answer right away. I topped off the truck for $63.18. Then I sat with my hands on the wheel. My son had not come up with that sentence by himself. I knew his words. That was not one of them. I typed back, "I am thinking clearly enough to read paper." He did not reply. Calvin Mercer's office was on the 4th floor of a brick building near Glenwood Avenue. Calvin had been my lawyer for almost 20 years. He had gray hair, narrow glasses, and a habit of keeping every receipt like it might testify later. That is why I trusted him. His assistant showed me in at 9:58. Calvin stood when I entered. "Walter," he said. Calvin. He did not ask me how I was. I respected that. Men can ask that question when they want an answer. Most do not. He pointed to the chair. "Sit down." I handed him Marissa's agreement. He read it once without moving his face. Then he read it again and took off his glasses. "Who prepared this?" "Marissa brought it." "Did you sign anything?" "No." "Did you give keys?" "No." "Did you say you would transfer anything?" "I said I'd look at the papers." Calvin nodded. "Good." I gave him the timeline. Funeral on Saturday. Kitchen meeting Tuesday at 1:15. Paul and Linda Harrow present. Daniel silent. Marissa requested keys by Friday. Calvin wrote while I talked. He asked, "Current appraisal? $1,800,000. Done last October by Bank's Appraisal out of Morehead City. Insurance, $7,940 a year. Wind policy separate. Flood is $2,180. Mortgage? None. Taxes? $11,612 last year." He looked up. "You brought no notes." "I know what things cost." He almost smiled. "Yes, you do." I said, "There's a blue envelope at the house." His pen stopped. "Ellen's drawer?" he asked. "Yes." "You have not opened it?" "No." "Bring it next time." "Do I need it now?" Calvin leaned back. "Maybe not today, but soon." I watched his face. Calvin had the careful look of a man hearing an engine noise under the deck plates. He tapped Marissa's paper. "This language worries me." "Pending family transfer." "Yes." "What does that mean?" "It means someone may have told a lender this house is moving." I sat still. Calvin said, "Walter, has anyone asked you to sign a power of attorney?" "No." "Has anyone suggested it?" "Not to me." He slid a legal pad across his desk. "Write down any phrase they use, especially anything about confusion, grief, capacity, or protection." I said, Daniel texted me this morning. I showed him the phone. Calvin read the message. His mouth tightened. Forward that to me. I did. He printed it before I left. That is Calvin. A thing is not real to him until paper can hold it. Then my phone rang. The screen said Linda Harrow. I looked at Calvin. He said, "Answer it. Put it on speaker. Tell her I'm here." I pressed the button. "Walter," Linda said, soft as syrup, "I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. I'm at my lawyer's office." Silence, a short one, but I heard it. "Oh," she said. "Well, that may be good, actually." Calvin picked up his pen. Linda continued. "We're all concerned. Daniel is concerned. Marissa is concerned. You've had a terrible shock." "I buried my wife." "Yes, exactly. No one expects you to manage everything alone. I have managed worse engines than my own checkbook." She gave a tiny laugh. "This isn't about pride. No. It's about protection." Calvin wrote that word down. Linda said, "Sometimes families use a temporary power of attorney, just until things settle." I looked at Calvin. His eyes stayed on the page. "Who would hold that?" I asked. "Well, Daniel, of course, with Marissa helping him." "Of course. You don't want people taking advantage of you." "No," I said. "I surely do not." Calvin's pen moved again. Linda sighed. "Walter, don't turn this into suspicion. Ellen wouldn't like that." For the first time, my hand closed hard around the phone. I saw Ellen at the Atlantic Beach sink, peeling peaches in August. I saw her on the back steps with sand on her feet. I saw her writing my name on that blue envelope and telling me not to be stubborn when the time came. I kept my voice level. "Don't use my wife to move my hand, Linda." Another silence. Then her voice cooled. "I'm only trying to help. I know what you're trying." I ended the call. Calvin looked at me for a long moment. "That was useful," he said. "I figured. She just gave us intent. She gave us more than that." He nodded once. "Yes, she did." Before I left Raleigh, Calvin made 3 copies of Marissa's agreement. He kept one. He gave one back to me. He put one in a sealed folder with Daniel's text and notes from Linda's call. Then he said, "Do not confront them. Do not warn them. Do not sign anything. Do not hand over keys." I wasn't planning to. "I know. I still say it." I stood. He added, "And Walter?" I turned back. If there is pressure toward capacity or guardianship, we move fast. That word sat heavy. Guardianship. It is a clean word for an ugly fear. Every older man knows it. Every older woman too. Someone younger starts saying, "You are not yourself." Then your bank account needs a helper, your house needs protection, your keys need managing. Pretty soon, your life has handles on it, and other people are carrying it. I drove back to Beaufort, with both hands on the wheel. I did not turn on the radio. Outside New Bern, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Daniel. "Can we talk tonight? Marissa thinks you're making this personal." I read it at a red light. Then a second message came. "We already planned around it, Dad. Please." There was that phrase for the 3rd time. I did not answer until I got home to Ann Street. I parked in the driveway and sat there with the engine ticking itself cool. Then I typed, "Come by tomorrow at 6. Just you." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Daniel wrote, "Marissa should be there." I typed, "Just you." He did not answer. I went inside. The house had the same quiet waiting in it. On the kitchen table, Ellen's ring lay beside the folded agreement. I had left it there by accident, or maybe I had not. I picked up the ring and went to the recipe drawer. This time I opened the blue envelope, only the flap. Inside was a stack of papers and one folded letter in Ellen's handwriting. I took out the letter first. My hands were steady until I saw the first line. "Walter, if you are reading this, someone has forgotten this house was never just boards and windows." I sat down hard. I read that line twice. Then I folded the letter closed, not because I was afraid, because some things deserve a witness, and the next person who needed to hear Ellen Pike's words was my son. I put the letter back in the envelope and slid it under the legal pad. Then I sat in that kitchen until the clock over the stove clicked to 9. Ellen bought that clock at a yard sale for $4. It ran 5 minutes slow for 12 years. She said it kept me from rushing. My phone buzzed at 9:14. Daniel wrote, "We'll come tomorrow, I looked at that word for a while. Then I wrote it down on my pad, 9:14 p.m. Daniel changed just you to we. That may sound cold to you. It was not cold. It was how I kept from answering with hurt. Hurt makes a man sloppy. I spent too many years around engines to trust anything that runs hot. I slept badly that night. I woke at 3:20 and heard the old house settle. Ellen's side of the bed stayed smooth. I got up at 5 and made coffee strong enough to stand a spoon in. Then I went to the small office off the den. That office held 38 years of bills, deeds, tax returns, repair logs, rent rolls, insurance policies, and one metal filing cabinet Ellen called my second wife. I pulled the bank folder for Daniel first. Not because I suspected him of theft. I did not. I suspected weakness. There is a kind of weakness that spends like money. It buys peace in the morning and debt by supper. I opened the folder marked Daniel House. Inside were my own notes. First payment, March 2023. Amount $4,700. Reason, temporary help after Daniel's hours were cut. Temporary. I had written that word myself. Then I turned the pages. 4,700 in April. 4,700 in May. Same in June, same through Christmas. Then all the way through the next year. Then the year after that. 38 payments by then, counting the one that had cleared 8 days before Ellen passed. $178,600. That number sat there on the desk. I had paid it quietly because Daniel was my son and because Ellen said a family roof should not cave in while you still had lumber. But that roof had people dancing on it now. At 7:02, I called Carteret Trust Bank. I knew the branch manager, a woman named Patrice Bell. She had handled my dock loan years back when I bought the 2 slips off Lennoxville Road for $312,000. Walter, she said, I heard about Ellen. Thank you, Patrice. You need something? I need a list of every automatic transfer tied to my household accounts. Today? Yes. All right, give me 20 minutes. Take 10. She paused. Then she said, That kind of morning? That kind. While I waited, I pulled another folder. Daniel's truck loan. I had paid $19,400 on that one in 2021, after his landscaping partnership folded. I had paid $12,800 to keep his business taxes from becoming public embarrassment. I had paid $8,900 for Marissa's first clinic equipment because she told Ellen the lease required new tables and sterilizers. Back then, she smiled differently. Or maybe I looked at her differently. You have to understand, I was not keeping score to punish anybody. I kept records because that is what I do. A man who fixes engines records pressure, heat, vibration, and hours. If trouble comes, the log tells the truth before mouths start working. Patrice called back at 7:19. You've got the Daniel Pike mortgage transfer, she said. $4,700 monthly. I know that one. There's also the clinic lease backup guarantee. My hand stopped over the folder. Say that again. You guaranteed a lease payment reserve for Harbor Light Wellness. It's not a payment unless they miss. It shows as a contingent hold. How much? $84,000. When was it signed? September 18th, 2024. I sat back. I did not sign that. Silence came through the line. Walter, Patrice said, I'm looking at a scanned authorization. Send it to Calvin Mercer. I can send it to you. Send it to Calvin, then call me back. Is this a dispute? It is now. I hung up and wrote it down. September 18th, Harbor Light Wellness, $84,000, signature questioned. Then I looked at Ellen's ring sitting on the desk. Ellen had been alive that September. She had been tired, but she had still been making curtains. If Marissa had used my name then, Ellen would have seen the lie in one breath. That told me something. They had learned to wait until the room was missing its sharpest person. At 6 that evening, Daniel arrived with Marissa. I watched from the front window as their SUV pulled up along Ann Street. Daniel got out first. He stood by the hood and looked at my porch like it had become a courthouse. Marissa came around from the passenger side with a folder tucked against her chest. I opened the door before they knocked. I said just you, I told Daniel. He rubbed his palms on his jeans. Dad, we're married. Marissa stepped up beside him. We shouldn't divide the family. No, I said. You're doing that fine together. Her face tightened. Daniel flinched. I should not have said it, but I did. They came into the kitchen. Marissa looked at the table first, then at the counter, Then at the recipe drawer. A hungry person always looks for the pantry. I had cleared everything except Ellen's mug, my legal pad, and one pen. The blue envelope was not there. It was upstairs in the sewing room, inside Ellen's cedar chest under two folded quilts. Marissa sat without being asked. Daniel stayed standing. "Sit down," I said. He did. Marissa opened her folder. "We talked to someone today. I'm listening." "A neutral person," she said. "Someone who understands estate transitions." "What's their name?" She blinked. "That's not important yet." "It is to me." Daniel said, "Dad, please don't start." I looked at him. "Start what? You know." "No, Daniel. Say it." He looked at Marissa. She gave him a small nod. He turned back to me. "You're making everything harder." There it was. Not the same as cruel, but close enough to leave a bruise. "How?" I asked. Marissa leaned forward. "We need access to the beach house for the valuation process. It was appraised last October. Private lenders require their own numbers. That was new." "Private lenders," I said. She shut her folder halfway. "It's just business language." "What lender?" "Walter, you don't need to manage every detail." "I do when my house is in it." "Our family house," she said. I felt Daniel look at me then. That phrase landed wrong even on him. "Our family house," I repeated. Marissa softened her voice. "Ellen wanted family there." "She did. So why are you blocking that?" "I am asking questions." "You're grieving. Both can happen at once." Daniel put his elbows on the table and covered his face. "Dad, can you just work with us?" "I am working with you." "No, you're making notes." "That is how I work." Marissa pushed a paper across the table. "Then note this. We have a closing appointment Friday morning at Atlantic Coast Title." I did not touch the paper. "What kind of closing?" "A preliminary family transfer package." "Preliminary," I said. "Yes." "With a title company." "It's normal." "No, it isn't." Her mouth went flat. "You aren't a lawyer." "No, I'm the owner." Daniel whispered, "Dad." I turned to him. "Did you know about Friday?" He nodded once. "How long?" He did not answer. "How long, Daniel?" Marissa said, "We made the appointment last week." Last week. Ellen had been in the ground less than a week. Last week she had still been in our bedroom, with women from church bringing soup we could not eat. I kept my voice low. "Before the funeral?" Daniel said, "Marissa handled it." "That is not an answer." He looked down. "Yes." I wrote it on the pad, "Closing appointment arranged before funeral." Marissa stared at the pen moving. "That makes you look paranoid." "Only if I'm wrong." She stood up. "This is exactly what Linda warned us about." Daniel reached for her hand. "Marissa." "No," she said. "He needs to hear it." I put the pen down. She looked at me with her chin raised. "You're isolating yourself. You're suspicious. You're refusing reasonable help. That can become a legal concern." Daniel went pale. I looked at him, not her. "Did you come here to threaten me?" "No," he said. Marissa answered at the same time. "We came to protect you." Protect. That word had started showing up too often. I stood and went to the pantry wall where the key rack hung. There were 22 keys on it, dock keys, rental keys, shed keys. One old brass key to a lock we no longer owned because Ellen liked how it looked. I took down the Atlantic Beach set. Marissa's eyes changed. She tried to hide it, but she could not. Some people smile with their mouth. Greed smiles in the shoulders first. Daniel stared at the keys. I held them in my palm. "You want these Friday?" I said. "Yes," Marissa said. "At the title office." I closed my hand around them. "I'll be there." Daniel looked up. "You will?" "Yes." Marissa took one step toward me. "Good. That's good. I'll bring the keys." Her relief came too fast. "And Calvin Mercer," I said. Her face lost its color around the mouth. Daniel said, "Why does Calvin need to come?" "Because he reads small print better than grief does." Marissa forced a laugh. "Fine. Bring whoever you need." "I will." She held out her hand. "Can we at least take them tonight?" "No." The relief vanished. "We need measurements," she said. "I know the measurements." "You don't know what they need." I know every sill, joist, shut-off, breaker, vent, and window in that house. Daniel said, "Dad, please." I turned to him. "You keep saying that. What are you asking me to do?" He swallowed. "Trust us." "No," I said. "Ask the real thing." He looked at Marissa. She did not help him this time. He said, "Sign Friday." There it was on the table at last. I nodded. "Thank you." "For what?" "For saying it straight." Marissa grabbed her folder. "We're done here." "No," I said. "One more thing." She stopped. I looked at Daniel. "Who told you to write that I wasn't thinking clearly?" His jaw tightened. Marissa said, "That was his concern." I asked him. Daniel stared at the table. "Daniel." He spoke so low I almost missed it. "Linda said I needed to put it in writing." Marissa turned. "Daniel." He kept looking down. "She said it would help if we had to show concern later." That sentence laid itself out clean. No guesswork. No fog. Marissa whispered his name again. Sharper this time. I wrote every word down. Then I said, "Go home." Daniel looked at me, and for 1 second I saw the boy who had once brought me a broken fishing reel because he knew I could fix anything. Then Marissa touched his sleeve. He stood. At the door, Daniel said, "Dad, I'm sorry." "No," I said. "Not yet." He nodded like he understood what that meant. Marissa walked ahead of him to the SUV. After they left, I called Calvin. He answered on the second ring. "Tell me." I told him. He did not interrupt. When I finished, he said, "Do you still have the keys?" "In my pocket." "Good. Bring them Friday. I already told them I would." That was smart. It felt like surrender. Sometimes a man has to let the other side finish building the bridge. I looked toward the dark window over the sink. I could see my own face in it, older than last month, not confused, just tired. "Patrice found something," I said. "The clinic hold?" "She sent it?" "She did." "Is that my signature?" "No." He said it flat. No courtroom voice, just fact. I sat down. Calvin continued. "It is close, but not close enough. Your W has never looped that way. I checked your old closing files." "Of course you did." "I also called Atlantic Coast Title." "You did what?" "I made an inquiry." "Calvin." "Walter, I know how to ask without lighting the dock on fire." "What did they say?" "They have a file scheduled for Friday at 10:30. "With my name on it?" "Yes." "What else?" "Daniel and Marissa Pike as receiving parties, Paul Harrow listed as contact for lender communication." I closed my eyes. Paul. His appetite had been there from the start. I had seen it at my own kitchen table. Calvin said, "There's more." "Say it." "The title request references a family transfer and a collateral review. The lender is Seaside Private Capital." "Never heard of them." "They do short-term bridge loans. Expensive money." "How expensive?" "Usually 12 to 16% with fees." "For what amount?" "I don't have the full file." "Guess." "I don't like guesses." "Calvin." He exhaled. "Given the property value, they may be trying for 600,000 or more." 600,000. I wrote it down. That number had a different weight. That was not a renovation. That was not estimates. That was a manhole cover over a deep hole. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "The blue envelope." I looked toward the stairs. I only read one line. "Bring the whole thing." "Do we open it before Friday?" "Yes." "Tomorrow." "In my office or by secure call?" "No," I said. "No?" "If Ellen wrote it for Daniel to hear, he should hear it." Calvin was quiet. Then he said, "Walter, sentiment can cost you position." "I'm not talking about sentiment." "What are you talking about?" "Timing." He understood then. "All right," he said, "but do not read the whole letter to them alone." "I won't." "And do not tell them what is in that envelope." "I don't know what is in it." "You know enough." I did, but knowing enough is not the same as saying it too early. The next morning, I drove to Atlantic Beach by myself. I crossed the bridge with the windows cracked. The air smelled like salt and hot pavement. Ellen used to lower her window right there every time, even in February. She said the first breath after the bridge counted as arrival. The beach house sat 2 streets back from the water. Gray shingles, white trim, a porch that sagged a 1/4 inch on the left because the original builder had been cheap with the posts, I knew the sag. I had jacked it, shimmed it, and braced it myself. We bought that place in 2009 for $486,000. The roof needed $42,000 in work. The plumbing cost $18,700. The windows were another $31,200. Ellen picked every curtain, every lamp, every chipped plate in the kitchen cabinet. She never called it an investment. She called it breathing room. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house was still. The floors smelled faintly of lemon oil because Ellen had cleaned before she got sick enough to stop pretending she was only tired. On the dining table sat her fabric samples, pale yellow, sea green, one strip with tiny blue flowers I had told her looked old-fashioned. She had said, "Good, so are we." I stood there longer than I meant to. Then I got to work. I photographed every room. Door locks, window latches, thermostat, electrical panel, water shutoff, shed lock, porch rail. I took pictures the way I would inspect a vessel before turning over a watch. If somebody claimed later that I had handed them a damaged property or denied access to a safe one, I wanted the truth dated and stored. At 11:08, a white sedan pulled up outside. I watched through the front curtain as Paul Harrow got out. He wore khaki pants and a blue shirt tucked too neatly. He looked at the house, then at his phone, then at the lockbox by the porch rail. There was no lockbox. He walked up and tried the front door. I opened it before he knocked. Paul stepped back. "Walter." "Paul." "I didn't know you'd be here." "I own it." He gave a small smile. "For now, apparently." That told me plenty. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "Meeting a contractor." "No, you aren't." He looked past me into the house. "Marissa asked me to help." "With what?" "Transition." There's that word again. His smile thinned. "You can make this dignified, Walter." It already was. Then you came. He lowered his voice. "You don't want to embarrass Daniel." "No." "Then stop forcing everyone into corners." I looked at the street behind him. No contractor truck, no tape measure, no clipboard, just Paul and a phone. "What did Marissa owe before this started?" I asked. His face did not move, but his eyes did. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." He stepped closer. "Families help families. Mine already has. Then help a little more." "How much?" He laughed once. "This is not a doc negotiation." "How much, Paul?" His jaw worked. "You're stuck in numbers. Numbers are where lies go to get weighed." He pointed toward the house. "That place is sitting empty. My wife has been gone less than a week." He looked away, and for a second even he knew he had stepped wrong. Then he recovered. Ellen was generous. "Don't. She would want Daniel secure. Don't use her." He nodded slowly. "Fine. Use yourself. You're 70. You can't maintain all this forever." "I maintained ferry engines older than you." "And now you're tired." "Yes," I said. "I am." He thought that was an opening. He leaned in, then let the younger generation carry it. I looked at his soft hands, his polished watch, his clean shoes on Ellen's porch. "Carry what?" "The property." "You mean the debt?" His mouth shut. There it was, the first bolt slipping. I stepped back and closed the door between us. He stood there a moment. Then he walked to his car and made a call before he drove off. I wrote it all down at the dining table. Paul at Beach House, 11:08. No contractor present. Said for now. Said younger generation carry it. Avoided debt question. Then I opened the kitchen cabinet and found Ellen's beach mugs. 6 of them. Blue handles. She bought them for $2 each at the Moorhead Flea Market. One had a chip near the rim from when Daniel dropped it during a July storm and cried like he had broken the moon. I put my hand on that mug and had to sit down. Grief comes in invoices too. You pay a little, then it finds another line item. At 1:30, Calvin called. "I have a cleaner picture," he said. "I'm at the house." "Good. Listen carefully." I'm listening. Seaside Private Capital has a pending bridge loan inquiry tied to Harbor Light Wellness Expansion, LLC. How much? $612,000. I wrote it down. There was the shape of it. $612,000. Not family, not grief, not protection. Money. Calvin continued. The inquiry file includes an asset statement. Signed by who? Marissa Pike. What does it say? It lists anticipated family real estate collateral. The beach house? Yes. By address? Yes. I looked around Ellen's kitchen. And my consent? That is where Friday comes in. I understood then. Friday was not a beginning. Friday was the patch over a hole already cut. Calvin said, "Walter, I'm here. They may believe your signature will clean what they already submitted. How much trouble is Marissa in, if the statement was relied on enough? And Daniel? I don't know yet." I did not like that answer, but it was honest. Calvin said, "Bring the blue envelope. Today, if you can." I looked at the yellow curtains folded over a chair. "No," I said, "tomorrow morning." "Why?" "Because tonight they're coming to dinner." "They are?" "I invited them yesterday before all this." "You didn't tell me. I'm telling you now." "Cancel it." "No." "Walter, I need Daniel at my table one more time before Friday." "For what?" "To hear himself." Calvin sighed. "Then keep it narrow. Ask. Don't accuse." "I know. And record if North Carolina law allows you and your part of the conversation." "I already checked years ago." "Of course you did." "That evening I cooked pot roast because Ellen had taken one from the freezer before everything changed. It had been thawing in the bottom of the refrigerator. I could not throw it out." Daniel came with Marissa, Paul, and Linda. That was not an accident. It was a formation. Linda carried a pie from a bakery and acted like that made the night gentle. Paul brought wine I did not open. Marissa wore cream-colored pants and a watch that cost more than my first truck. Daniel looked like he had not slept. We sat in the dining room because Ellen would have wanted plates, not paper. For 10 minutes they performed family. Linda asked about the church ladies. Paul talked about traffic over the bridge. Marissa praised the roast. Daniel pushed carrots around his plate. Then I said, "Who valued the beach house for the lender?" Marissa's fork stopped. Paul answered, "That's handled." I asked who. "A preliminary review was done." "By who?" Linda smiled. "Walter, dinner doesn't need to be business." It became business on Tuesday. Daniel said, "Dad." I looked at him. "Did you see the valuation?" He shook his head. Marissa said, "He didn't need to." "Did you?" "Yes." "How much?" She took a drink of water. "Around 1.8. Last October's appraisal was 1,800,000 exactly." "That sounds right. Who gave that to you?" No one spoke. I cut one piece of roast and set my fork down. Marissa said, "Ellen mentioned it once." "No, she didn't." "You don't know every conversation." "I know that one." Linda said, "Walter, your tone is concerning." I smiled a little. I could not help it. My tone. "Yes. Not the loan?" Paul put his glass down. "What loan?" "Good question." Marissa looked at him fast. Too fast. I saw it. Daniel saw it too. I said, "When is Seaside Private Capital expecting collateral?" Paul's face changed first. Linda's hand moved to her necklace. Marissa went still. Daniel looked up. "Seaside what?" That hurt more than I expected. Marissa turned on him. "It's just financing." "For what?" he asked. "For the expansion." "You said the bank was reviewing it." "It is a bank." "No," I said. "It's private money." Paul snapped, "You had no right digging into her business." "It used my house." "Not yet." That was the worst answer he could have given. The room held still around those two words. Daniel turned to Marissa. "What does that mean?" She shook her head. "Nothing. He's twisting it." I said, "How much is the loan?" She glared at me. Daniel asked, "Marissa." She whispered, 612,000, he said. She did not answer. Daniel pushed back from the table. His chair legs scraped the floor. Linda reached for him. "Sit down, honey." He stepped away from her hand. I watched my son finally stand without permission from the wrong people. He looked at me. "Did you know?" "Today." "Why didn't you tell me?" "I'm telling you now." Marissa stood. "This is cruel." "No," I said. Cruel was asking for keys 3 days after Ellen's funeral. She picked up her purse. Paul stood too. "We're leaving." Linda's voice turned sharp. "Walter, you are making a serious mistake." I looked at Daniel. "Are you leaving with them?" He looked at Marissa, then at Linda, then at me. For one breath, I thought he might stay. He did not. I need to talk to my wife, he said. That's fair. Marissa moved fast toward the front hall. Paul followed. Linda paused beside my chair. You think paper makes you strong? She said. I looked up at her. No, Linda. I think truth does. Her face pinched, and she left. Daniel was last out. At the door, he turned back. Dad, he said. Did Mom know? I held the back of the chair. Yes. His eyes filled, but he kept them open. What did she do? I thought of the blue envelope upstairs. I thought of Ellen's first line. I thought of the house she had protected before any of us knew how badly it would need protecting. She wrote things down, I said. Daniel nodded once, then he walked out into the dark. After Daniel left, I stood in the dining room and listened to the house settle. The pot roast sat half-eaten. Linda's bakery pie was still in its box. Paul's wine stood unopened by the salt shaker, proud of itself for being expensive and useless. Ellen would have wrapped the roast and sent half of it home with Daniel anyway. She never let anger waste food. I cleared the plate slowly. Not because I was calm inside, I was not. I was angry enough to feel it in my hands, but I had learned around engines that anger makes a man careless. You strip bolts that way. You miss leaks. You hear what you want instead of what the machine is telling you. So I washed every plate. Then I put Paul's wine in the pantry without opening it. At 9:42, my phone buzzed on the counter. Daniel's name showed. I answered. He said, "Did you record dinner?" "Yes." He breathed hard into the phone. "Dad, you want the file?" "No, I just needed to know." "Why?" "Because Marissa says you trapped her." I ask questions. She says that's the same thing. It isn't. He went quiet. I could hear a car signal clicking in the background. He was not home yet. I said, "Where are you?" "Parked by the marina." "In Beaufort?" "Yeah." "You alone?" "Yes." "Then talk." He did not for a while. I let him sit in it. Men speak when the pressure gets higher than the pride. Finally he said, "I didn't know it was 612. "What did you know?" "She said there was a loan." "How much?" 200. "For the clinic?" "Yes." "And the house?" He swallowed. I heard it. "She said Mom promised it." "She did not." "I know that now." "No," I said. "You know she needed it. That's different." He made a small sound, not crying exactly, more like a man trying to keep a door shut with his shoulder. I said, "Justo, who told you I was confused first?" "Linda." "Not Marissa?" She agreed. Linda said grief can make older men stubborn. Older men. I'm sorry. Not yet. I know. I leaned against the sink and looked at Ellen's empty chair by the window. Daniel said, "What did Mom write down?" "Enough." "Can I see it?" "Tomorrow." "Where?" "Calvin's office." He went quiet again. I said, "Daniel, if you come alone." "I don't know if I can." "That's the first honest thing you've said tonight." "She's my wife." "I know." "I took vows." "So did I." That landed between us. I did not dress it up. He said, "What time?" 9. "I'll try." "No, you'll choose." I hung up before he could soften it. "You have to understand something about my son. Daniel was not a bad man. Weakness can do damage, though. A soft board still breaks under weight." He had let Marissa and Linda speak through him until his own voice sounded borrowed. That night I went upstairs to Ellen's sewing room. I had avoided it except to stand in the doorway. The room still held her shape. Her reading glasses were beside the machine. A basket of mending sat near the chair. Daniel's old Coast Guard sweatshirt was folded on top, waiting for a patch at the elbow. He was 39 years old, and his mother still kept his old things alive. I opened the recipe drawer. The blue envelope lay under the church cookbook and the pack of linen handkerchiefs. Ellen had written my name across it in her neat hand. Walter. Not Dad. Not Mr. Pike. Walter. I held her ring in my palm and slid my thumb across the worn band. Then I opened the envelope. There were 2 parts inside. One was a folded letter. The other was a thick set of recorded papers with a stamp from Carteret County. I saw the title line. I saw enough to know Calvin had not guessed. Ellen had moved before any of them did. I did not read the deed. That belonged at a table with witnesses, but I read her letter. Walter, if you are reading this without me beside you, I am sorry I made you carry one more hard thing. I sat down right there on the floor. Ellen had never written long when 3 words would do. Her grocery list looked like orders: eggs, soap, coffee, bananas if green, but this letter ran 3 pages, and every line sounded like her sitting across from me with tea gone cold. She wrote that she knew Daniel loved us, but love did not make him firm. She wrote that Marissa counted things before she thanked people for them. She wrote that Linda had asked too many questions about deeds, appraisals, and whether my name alone was on the Atlantic Beach place. Then came the part that made me put the page down. She had seen the first move before I did. 2 years earlier, after her diagnosis had turned our calendar into hospital visits and quiet drives, she asked Calvin to change the beach house. Not sell it, not hide it, protect it. She said she wanted that house to remain breathing room, not bait. Bait. That was her word. I read the sentence twice. She wrote, "If someone asks for the keys before they ask how you are, you will know I was right." I put my hand over my eyes. I sat there a long time, not crying loud, nothing dramatic, just an old man on a sewing room floor holding paper his wife had left because she knew the load would come. At 6:30 the next morning, I was already dressed. I put the blue envelope in my inside jacket pocket. Then I gathered my own papers. 3 years of mortgage transfers to Daniel. 36 payments of $4,700 each. Total $169,200. 5 checks for emergency repairs on their house. $11,400 for the HVAC. $6,800 for the roof leak. $3,900 for the water heater and drywall, $8,500 toward their property taxes when Daniel said escrow had miscalculated. That was $199,800 before groceries, birthday checks, school donations for their boys, and the $11,000 Ellen gave Marissa when the clinic opened. I did not gather those numbers to shame Daniel. I gathered them because I was done letting fog pass for weather. Calvin Mercer's Raleigh office sat on the 4th floor of a brick building that smelled like paper, coffee, and old money. He kept a small satellite office in Beaufort, but the closing file had pulled him inland. I drove the 152 miles with 1 stop for gas in New Bern. The truck took 23.4 gallons. I kept the receipt. Calvin met me at the elevator. He did not ask how I was. Good lawyers know bad questions. He said, "Do you have it?" I touched my jacket pocket. "Yes. Did you read it?" "The letter, not the deed." He nodded. "Good." His conference room had a long table and no soft chairs. I liked that. Soft chairs make people think comfort is part of the job. Daniel was already there. He sat at the far end with both hands around a paper cup. He looked up when I walked in. He had shaved, but he still looked worn out. I said, "You came alone." "I did." "Does Marissa know?" "Yes." "What did she say?" "She said I was choosing sides." "And what did you say?" He looked at the coffee. I said maybe sides already got chosen. Calvin closed the door. He placed a recorder on the table, then looked at Daniel. "This is not a trap," Calvin said. "It is a record." Daniel nodded. Calvin said, "Walter, may I see the envelope?" I handed it over. He examined the seal, the stamp, the papers, and Ellen's letter. His face did not change much, but his eyes moved carefully. Calvin read documents the way I read gauges. Small changes mattered. Daniel stared at the envelope. "Is that Mom's writing?" "Yes," I said. Calvin looked at me. "Do you want me to read the letter aloud?" I shook my head. "Some of it." He understood. He unfolded the pages and read the first lines. His voice stayed level. When he reached Ellen's sentence about the keys, Daniel bent forward and covered his mouth. Calvin stopped. I said, "Keep going." He read the part about Linda asking deed questions. He read the part about Daniel having a good heart and a soft spine. Daniel flinched at that, but he did not object. He knew his mother. He knew she would never use a sharp word unless the truth required it. Then Calvin read the last paragraph I had marked. "Walter, do not fight them loud. You never had to. Put the right paper on the right table. Let people read what they signed. Let Daniel see who asked him to stand where he is standing." Calvin folded the letter. Daniel's face had gone pale. "She knew," he said. "Yes." "Why didn't she tell me?" I answered before Calvin could. "Because she was busy trying to stay alive." Daniel closed his eyes. I hate this, he said. So do I. Calvin slid another document across the table. It was not the deed. It was the lender inquiry he had obtained through proper channels, with parts redacted. Daniel, he said, I need you to look at page 3. Daniel pulled it closer. His eyes moved down the page. Then they stopped. He said, That's my address. Yes, Calvin said. Your residence is listed as a secondary repayment source. Daniel looked up. What? Calvin tapped the page. Harbor Light Wellness Expansion, LLC, lists anticipated collateral support from the Atlantic Beach property. It also references your household income and a possible refinance of your Beaufort home if the primary collateral is delayed. No, Daniel said. Calvin did not move. Daniel said it again. No, she told me our house wasn't part of it. I sat very still. That was the new bolt coming loose. Calvin said, Did you sign any spousal consent forms? No. Did you sign any income certification? Daniel rubbed his forehead. I signed something last month. She said it was for the clinic's payroll lender. Do you have a copy? No. Calvin wrote that down. I said, Was Linda there? Daniel looked at me. Yes. And Paul. He brought the papers. Calvin's pen stopped for half a second. What did Paul say? Daniel swallowed. He said it was housekeeping. Calvin leaned back. Housekeeping, he said. I almost laughed, but there was no humor in me. Daniel said, Can they take my house? Calvin said, Not from what I see right now, but they tried to make it useful. Daniel stood and walked to the window. Rally traffic moved below us like it had somewhere clean to go. He said, I brought them into your house. Yes. I let them talk about you. Yes. I wrote that note. Yes. He turned around. His eyes were wet. Dad, I'm sorry. This time I did not say not yet. I said, sorry as a start. It isn't a repair. He nodded. What do I do? I looked at Calvin. Calvin said, You tell the truth in writing. Today. You state who told you to use the words about confusion. You state what you understood about the beach house. You state what you did not know about the $612,000. Daniel sat down. And Marissa? Calvin's voice stayed flat. She needs her own lawyer. Daniel put both hands on the table. She's going to say, I betrayed her. I said, maybe, but she put your house on a lender page without telling you. He looked at the paper again. I could see the marriage and the truth wrestling in him. I did not envy that fight, but I was done stepping between him and consequences. Calvin handed him a yellow legal pad. Start with Linda, he said. Daniel picked up the pen. For 20 minutes, the only sound was traffic and paper. Daniel wrote slowly. Twice he stopped and asked how to phrase something. Calvin told him to use his own words. That matters. Borrowed words had already done enough harm. When Daniel finished, he read it aloud. Linda Harrow told me my father was grieving and vulnerable. She said using the phrase not thinking clearly would help protect everyone later. Marissa agreed. I did not know there was a $612,000 loan request. I did not know the Atlantic Beach house had been listed as available collateral before my father consented. I did not know my own home was named in any repayment discussion. He stopped. Calvin said, sign and date it. Daniel did. Then he looked at me. What happens Friday? We go to the closing. Why? Because they built a table. We'll use it. He nodded like a man who understood half of it and feared the rest. Calvin placed Ellen's letter back in the blue envelope. Then he took out the deed papers and laid them face down. Walter, he said, I have confirmed recording. Carteret County accepted this 2 years ago. Book and page are clean. Daniel stared at the papers. What is it? Calvin looked at me. I shook my head. Friday, I said. Daniel said, Dad. No. Please. You heard your mother's letter. That's enough for today. He looked hurt, but he did not push. That was the first good sign. At noon, Calvin made 2 calls with me sitting there. The first was to Atlantic Coast Title. He requested that no transfer documents be released before Friday's in-person review. He used quiet phrases: existing recorded interest, consent condition, potential misstatement in lender packet. Title: people do not need thunder. They need words that make their insurance carrier sweat. The second call was to Seaside Private Capital. Calvin put the phone on speaker. A man named Reeves answered. He sounded young and confident. Calvin said, "This is Calvin Mercer, counsel for Walter Pike." The voice changed just a little. "I'm familiar with the file." "Good. Then you understand no closing authority exists from Mr. Pike." "We were told a family transfer was expected." "You were told wrong." Reeves paused. "Is Mr. Pike declining to proceed?" Calvin looked at me. I said, "I'll attend Friday." Calvin repeated it. Reeves said, "Then we'll address it at closing." "We will," Calvin said. "Will Mrs. Pike be present?" I said, "Ellen Pike is not available." Calvin's eyes lifted to mine. Reeves cleared his throat. "I meant Marissa Pike." "I know what you meant," I said. The line went quiet. Calvin said, "We will see you Friday." He hung up. Daniel stared at the phone. "Dad." "What?" "That was Cold." "No. Cold was using your mother's house while her flowers were still on the table." He had no answer. Before we left, Calvin gave me one more page. It was a draft notice stopping all voluntary financial support to Daniel's mortgage account. I had asked him to prepare it. Seeing it in black print still hit me. Daniel saw the header. "What is that?" I slid it to him. He read the first paragraph and looked up. "You've been paying the mortgage." "Part of it." "For how long?" 3 years. "How much?" $4,700 a month. His mouth opened, then closed. "Marissa said the adjustment came from escrow." "No." "She knew?" "The transfers went into your joint account." He sat back hard. I said, "I started after you called about being short during the slow season. Ellen wanted the boys stable." I agreed. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Pride. Yours and mine." He looked down at the notice again. "You're stopping?" "Yes." His face changed. Not anger first. Fear. "Dad, I can't cover that by next month." "I know." "What am I supposed to do?" "Look at your own numbers." "That's it?" "No, that's the beginning." He rubbed both hands over his face. I said, "I will not pay through a joint account while your wife is pledging family property behind my back." He nodded slowly. "Fair." That one word cost him. I could hear it. Calvin said, "Daniel, you need separate counsel if your household finances are tied to the business documents." Daniel gave a tired laugh. "With what money?" I said, "Sell the boat." He looked at me. "The Grady. You still have it?" "Yes." "Then sell it. That was Mom's favorite." "No," I said. "The beach house was." He took that one in the chest. We drove back separately. Daniel said he needed time before going home. I did not ask where he would go. A man who has been asleep inside his own life needs a place to wake up without an audience. I reached Beaufort near dusk. The light over Ann Street had turned soft, and the live oaks made long shadows across the brick walk. Ellen had always liked that hour. She said houses told the truth then. You could see which windows were warm and which ones stayed dark. Marissa's SUV was in my driveway. Linda's sedan was behind it. Paul stood on my porch with his arms folded, as if ownership could be practiced by posture. Marissa held a manila folder. Linda had her phone in her hand. I parked at the curb and got out. Paul said, "We need to talk." "No." Marissa stepped down one stair. "Daniel isn't answering me." "That's between you and him." "What did you do to him?" "I gave him paper." Linda lifted her chin. "You had no right interfering in their marriage." I walked past them to the porch. Paul blocked the door. That was his mistake. Not because I was going to touch him, I had no need. But a man shows you who he is when he stands between you and your own lock. I looked at his shoes on Ellen's mat. "Move!" He smiled. "Or what?" I took out my phone and called the Beaufort Police non-emergency line. I gave my name, address off Ann Street, and said 3 people were refusing to leave my porch. Paul moved before I finished the sentence. Linda said, "That's ridiculous." I said into the phone, "They are moving now." The dispatcher asked if I still needed an officer. "Not unless they return." I hung up. Marissa's face had gone red. "You're really going to make this ugly?" "You drove here." She shook the folder at me. "I have emails from Ellen." That stopped me. Not because I believed her, because Ellen's name in Marissa's mouth had become a tool, and I wanted to see which edge she thought she had sharpened. I said, "Show me." Marissa opened the folder and pulled one printed page. She knew we were counting on the house. I took the paper. It was an email from Ellen, dated 8 months earlier. I recognized her short lines. "Marissa, Walter, and I want Daniel and the boys secure. We will talk after things settle." Ellen, that was all. I handed it back. "That says nothing about keys." She meant it. "No, you needed it to mean that." Linda stepped closer. "Walter, grief is making you suspicious." There it was again. Grief, suspicious, confused. They kept changing the cover, but the mechanism was the same. I said, "Linda, did you tell Daniel to write that I wasn't thinking clearly?" Her mouth tightened. "I told him to protect his father." From what? From impulsive decisions. Like refusing a $612,000 loan tied to my house? Paul said, "You don't understand bridge financing. I understand bridges. They need footing on both sides." Marissa said, "That house is wasted on you." That sentence did what her smile had done in my kitchen. It showed the beam underneath. I looked at her. "Say that Friday." She blinked. "What?" "At the title office." "Say it there." Paul stepped in. "We'll all be there." "Good." Linda said, "And you will sign." I put my key in the door. "No." Marissa's voice sharpened. "You said you'd bring the keys." "I will." I opened the door and stepped inside. Paul said, "Walter." I turned. He pointed at me. "After Friday, nobody will forget how you behaved." I looked at the three of them on my porch. Good. Then I closed the door. Inside, the house felt different. Not empty. Waiting. I went to the kitchen and placed Ellen's ring on the table. Then I opened my notebook and wrote the new lines down. Marissa said, "House wasted on me." Linda repeated, "Grief concern." Paul confirmed, "All will attend Friday." Marissa claims email promise. I taped the email copy Marissa had shoved into my hand beside the page. She had not realized I kept it. People who wave paper in anger forget paper can be measured. At 8:16, Daniel called again. His voice was rough. She emptied the business account. I sat down. "How much?" $78,000. "When?" "Today. 2 transfers. One to Harbor Light payroll, one to her mother." "How much to Linda?" $25,000. "Do you have screenshots?" "Yes." "Send them to Calvin." "I already did." That was the first time he had moved before I told him. I said, "Where are you?" "At the house." "Are they there?" "No." She came back and took clothes. "The boys?" "With her sister." I closed my eyes. "Are they all right?" "Yes. They think it's a sleepover." "Good." Daniel's voice lowered. "Dad, she said if you don't sign, everything collapses." "Yes." "She said you'd be hurting the boys." "No." "She put weight on a beam that was never hers." He was quiet. Then he said, "I found the papers Paul brought." "Where?" "In the printer drawer." "What are they?" "A personal financial statement. My name is typed on it." "Signed?" "No, not by me." I stood. "Daniel." "I know. Don't touch anything else. Photograph every page. Put the originals in a folder. Bring them Friday." "Shouldn't I bring them tomorrow?" "No. Calvin has enough. Friday needs witnesses." He understood that now. "Dad?" "Yes." "Was Mom angry at me?" "No." The answer came out fast because it was true. "She was afraid for you." That broke him. I listened to my grown son cry on the phone, and I did not fix it. That may have been the hardest thing I did all week. A father wants to tighten every loose bolt on his child's life, but Daniel was almost 40. Some repairs had to start in his own hands. When he could speak, he said, "I'll be there Friday." "Bring the folder." "I will." "And Daniel?" "Yeah? Sleep with the doors locked." "I will." After we hung up, I stayed at the kitchen table with Ellen's ring between my fingers. The Atlantic Beach keys hung on the hook by the pantry. 6 keys on a brass tag Ellen bought at a hardware store for $4.19. Front door, back door, shed, storm shutters, utility closet. Old side lock we never used but never removed. 3 days after the funeral, Marissa had smiled and asked for them like grief was a vacancy notice. Friday, I would bring them. I would lay them on the table where she could see them, and this time everybody in that room would hear what Ellen had built before she left me to guard it. Friday morning, I woke before 5 and dressed without turning on the bedroom light. Ellen's side of the bed stayed made. I had not touched the quilt since the morning after the service. That may sound foolish, but grief has its own little rules. Mine was simple. I did not disturb what I could still recognize. I put on a navy suit Ellen had bought me for a dock association dinner 4 years earlier. She said it made me look less like a man who had spent his life arguing with diesel fumes. I wore it because she had chosen it, not because Marissa deserved a pressed shirt. The keys were still on the pantry hook. I took them down and laid them beside Ellen's ring. 6 keys on that brass tag. They did not look like much. Keys never do until someone wants them badly enough to lie. At 6:10, Calvin called. "You awake?" "Yes." Daniel sent more pages at midnight. What did he find? A signed asset schedule. Marissa's signature? Yes. Daniel's? No. Calvin paused, and I could hear paper moving on his end. He was in Raleigh, probably already dressed, probably with 1 cup of black coffee sitting too close to a stack of files. He said, "Walter, the beach house is listed at $1,800,000. That part is true. The problem is the line under it." "What line?" "Available for pledge upon family conveyance." I looked at the keys. "Say that again." "Available for pledge upon family conveyance." So they were selling the lender a future transfer. That is how it reads. Who signed it? Marissa Pike, managing member. Paul Harrow signed as financial advisor. I closed my eyes for a second. Paul Harrow, the man who stood on my porch and told me nobody would forget how I behaved. He had signed his name under my wife's house like it was lumber stacked behind his garage. I said, "Will Reeves be there?" "Yes." "Title officer too. Her name is Maureen Bell." "Does she know?" "She knows enough to be careful." "That's enough." Calvin was quiet, then he said, "Bring the keys." "I already have them." "And Walter?" "Yes." "Let them talk first." "I plan to. That is something I learned around engines. You do not diagnose a knock by slamming the throttle right away. You let it idle. You listen. Bad parts announce themselves if a man can stand still long enough. After we hung up, I made coffee and did not drink it. My stomach had no use for it. I opened my notebook and read the last page. Marissa said house wasted on me. Linda repeated grief concern. Paul confirmed all will attend Friday. Daniel found unsigned personal financial statement. 78,000 moved, 25,000 to Linda. I added one more line. Keys go on table only after she asks. That mattered to me. I was not going to hand them over like a man surrendering. I was going to let her reach for them in front of witnesses. You have to understand something about a closing room. It is not dramatic by nature. It is a flat table, cheap chairs, pens, water bottles, and people pretending paper is clean because the font is tidy. I had been to enough closings to know the smell. Toner, coffee, nervous money. At 7:45, I locked my Ann Street house and drove toward Atlantic Beach. Beaufort was waking up behind me. A man in work pants swept sand from a storefront. A delivery truck idled near Front Street. The water was gray under a low sky. I passed places Ellen and I had known for decades, and every turn had her in it. The pharmacy where she argued over a prescription price and won, the bakery where she bought lemon squares for Daniel's boys, the church corner where I had stood 3 days earlier and forgot what my hands were for. I did not cry then. I had work to do. Daniel was waiting in the title office parking lot when I arrived. His truck was crooked between 2 lines. That alone told me how he was holding up. Daniel had learned to park straight before he learned to shave. He got out with a folder under one arm. He wore the same gray jacket he wore to Ellen's service. His eyes were red. "Dad." "Morning. Did Calvin tell you?" "Yes." I found another page. He opened the folder, but I held up my hand. "Inside." He nodded. Then he looked at my pocket. "You brought them?" "Yes." "Are you really going to put them on the table?" "If she asks." He swallowed. "She will." "I know." Daniel looked toward the office door. "She texted me at 3. "What did she say?" He took out his phone and handed it to me. The message was still open. "Do not let him ruin this because he misses her." If he cared about the boys, he would sign and hand over the keys like he promised. I read it twice. I did not need the second time. But I took it anyway. Some words deserve to be measured cold. I handed the phone back. She mentioned your house? No. Your account? No. Your signature? He looked down. No. A white Mercedes pulled in then. Marissa was driving. Linda sat beside her with sunglasses on through the morning was cloudy. Paul arrived behind them in a black pickup that still had dealer plates. Marissa stepped out in a cream jacket and heels too high for a day built on trouble. She saw the keys in my pocket because her eyes went there first. Not my face, not Daniel, not the folder under his arm, the keys. Linda walked over with a tight little smile. "Walter," she said, "we can still keep this dignified." "Good." Paul shut his truck door hard. "Calvin here?" "Not yet." Marissa came around the car. "Where is he?" "On his way." She looked at Daniel. "You didn't come home." Daniel did not answer. She lowered her voice, but not enough. "You're embarrassing me." Daniel said, "I read the asset schedule." Her face shifted. "Only a little, but enough." "What asset schedule?" "The one you signed." Paul stepped closer. "This isn't the parking lot for that." Daniel looked at him. "You signed too." Paul's jaw tightened. Linda touched Marissa's arm. "Not here." There it was. Not denial. Location control. People who have truth on their side do not care where a sentence lands. Calvin's sedan pulled in at 8:28. He got out with one black case and a thin blue folder. He did not hurry. That was Calvin's gift. He could make a room slow down before he entered it. He nodded to me, then to Daniel. "Morning." Paul said, "Are we doing this or not?" Calvin looked at him. "We are doing exactly what the documents allow." Paul gave a short laugh. "Lawyer talk." Calvin said, "Usually, yes." That shut him up for 3 seconds. Inside, the receptionist led us down a hall to a conference room with a long table and framed beach prints on the walls. A woman in a gray blazer stood near the head of the table. She had a tablet in one hand and a stack of folders in front of her. "Mr. Pike," she said, "I'm Maureen Bell." "Walter," I said. She shook my hand. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you." She did not say it like a tool. That mattered. I could still tell the difference. Reeves from Seaside Private Capital stood by the window. He was younger than his voice had sounded, maybe 35, with a watch too large for his wrist and the careful smile of a man who had expected an easy commission. He shook Calvin's hand first. "Mr. Mercer, Mr. Reeves." Then Reeves turned to me. "Mr. Pike, thank you for coming." I said I would. Marissa sat before anyone told her to. She placed her purse on the table and opened it. Linda sat beside her. Paul sat on Marissa's other side. Daniel chose a chair next to me. That was new, and Marissa saw it. Calvin sat across from them and put his black case on the floor. Maureen opened the first folder. "I want to state at the beginning that this meeting is for review only. No documents will be recorded from this table today without proper authority." Marissa smiled. "That's fine. We just need Walter to confirm the transfer." I put the keys on the table, not close to her, not close to me. Right in the center, on the polished wood, where the brass tag clicked once and stopped. Every eye went to them. Marissa inhaled. She tried to hide it, but I heard it. A man who spent 43 years around engines can hear a change in draw. She said, "Thank you." I said nothing. Her hand moved half an inch. Calvin did not look at me. He looked at Maureen. "Before anyone touches those, I'd like the lender packet identified." Reeves cleared his throat. "We have a draft transfer expectation, not a completed transfer." Calvin said, "Bring out the asset schedule." Reeves looked at Marissa. That was the first bad sign for him. A lender should not need permission from a borrower to show a document at a table built around that document. Maureen tapped her tablet. "I have it in the file." Paul said, "It's preliminary." Calvin said, "Then it will be easy to read." Maureen printed 3 pages from the machine behind her. No one spoke while it hummed. That little printer made more honest noise than half the people in the room. She handed copies around. I kept mine face down. Marissa said, "Walter, this is unnecessary. We all know what Ellen wanted." That was the line she chose. Ellen. I turned Ellen's ring once in my pocket. I said, "Tell them." "What?" "Tell them what Ellen wanted." Marissa looked at Linda. Linda gave her a small nod. Marissa sat straighter. "She wanted the family secure. She told me that. She said she and Walter wanted Daniel and the boys taken care of after things settled." Calvin asked, "Did she say she would transfer the Atlantic Beach house?" Marissa's mouth tightened. "She didn't use those exact words." "What exact words did she use?" Marissa opened her folder and pulled out the email again. The same 8-month-old email from Ellen. She slid it toward Maureen like it was a deed from the state. "Read it," she said. Maureen looked at Calvin. Calvin nodded. Maureen picked up the page. "Marissa, Walter and I want Daniel and the boys secure. We will talk after things settle. Ellen." She laid it down. Marissa said, "That's clear." "Daniel spoke before I could." "No, it isn't." Marissa turned on him. "Don't start." Daniel's voice shook, but he kept going. "You told me she promised it. She implied it. You told the lender it was available. For the family. You listed my house too." Linda leaned in. "Daniel, your wife is trying to save a business." Daniel looked at her. "With my signature?" Linda went still. Reeves said, "I think we should keep this focused on today's property." Calvin slid the asset schedule forward. "Good idea." He put one finger on the page. "Maureen, would you read the collateral section?" Maureen hesitated. I could tell she did not want to be part of a family fight. But title officers live by what is in the file, and the file was now awake. She read, "Atlantic Beach property, estimated value $1,800,000, available for pledge upon family conveyance." Nobody moved. Calvin said, "Read the signer line." Maureen looked down. "Marissa Pike, managing member, Harbor Light Wellness Expansion, LLC." "And the advisory certification, Paul Harrow, financial advisor." Paul leaned back. "That just means I reviewed projections." Calvin said, "You reviewed collateral." "I reviewed the package." "You signed under the collateral page." Paul pointed at me. "This is exactly why we were worried about his state of mind." There it was. Calvin folded his hands. "Whose state of mind?" Paul said, "Walter's. He's grieving. He's been erratic." I almost smiled, not because it amused me, because the bearing finally made the sound I had been waiting for. Maureen looked at me, then at Calvin. Reeves shifted by the window. Linda said, "No one is attacking him." Calvin looked at her. "Did you advise Daniel to call his father confused?" Linda's lips parted. "I advised Daniel to protect his family." Daniel took a sheet from his folder. "You told me to write that Dad wasn't thinking clearly." Marissa snapped, "Daniel." He kept his eyes on the page. "You said it would help later." Linda said, "That is not fair." Daniel looked up. "You were standing in my kitchen." Paul said, "This is a setup." I said, "No." They all looked at me. "This is a table." That was all I said. Calvin opened the blue folder. Not the black case. The blue folder. Marissa noticed the color. Her eyes narrowed. "What is that?" Calvin did not answer her. He looked at Maureen. "Before any transfer expectation is discussed, we need the current recorded ownership structure read into the meeting." Maureen's face changed. "I have a vesting deed in the title file." Calvin said, "You also received a certified copy this morning." "Yes." Marissa said, "Certified copy of what?" I kept my hand in my pocket around Ellen's ring. Calvin took out the first page. "Maureen, please confirm the recording information." Maureen picked up her copy from her folder. She read carefully. "Carteret County Register of Deeds, recorded 2 years ago, book 8912, page 406. Marissa frowned. 2 years ago? Paul looked at Linda. Linda whispered, "What is this?" Calvin slid the page toward the center. "This is the recorded deed into the Ellen Pike Coastal Trust." Marissa laughed once. It was thin and wrong. "That's not possible." Calvin said, "It is recorded." She looked at me. "You put it in a trust?" I did not answer. Calvin turned one page. "Maureen, I'll read the operative restriction unless you prefer to." Maureen glanced at Reeves. Reeves did not move. She said, "You may read it." Calvin put on his glasses. I saw Daniel grip his folder. I saw Marissa's hand hover over the keys again and stop. I saw Paul's face go flat. Linda leaned back like the chair had moved under her. Calvin read in that dry voice of his, the voice that made every word stand on its own feet. No transfer, lien, occupancy assignment, collateral pledge, or sale of the Atlantic Beach property may occur during Walter Pike's lifetime without Walter Pike's notarized written consent. The room went quiet. Not soft quiet, hard quiet. Marissa stared at the page. Read that again. Calvin did. No transfer, lien, occupancy assignment, collateral pledge, or sale of the Atlantic Beach property may occur during Walter Pike's lifetime without Walter Pike's notarized written consent. Reeves stepped away from the window. Mr. Mercer, may I see that? Calvin handed him a copy. Reeves read it with his mouth closed tight. Maureen was already typing on her tablet. Marissa looked at me. You did this? No. Don't lie to me. I took my hand from my pocket and placed Ellen's ring on the table beside the keys. Ellen did. That hit harder than I expected. Daniel made a sound and covered his mouth. Linda said, Walter, surely Ellen didn't mean to block her grandchildren. I looked at her. She meant to block this. Paul pushed his chair back. This is an estate trick. Calvin said, it is a recorded conveyance. It can be challenged. Yes, Calvin said. Most things can be, but not at this table. Marissa turned to Reeves. You said the transfer could still happen. Reeves held up one hand. I said if authority existed. We were told it would. By whom? She stopped. Reeves looked from her to Paul. By whom, Mrs. Pike? Paul said, the family represented it. Calvin tapped the asset page. No, Marissa Pike and Paul Harrow represented it. Maureen said, I'm placing a hold on this file. Marissa turned to her. You can't just do that. Maureen looked up. I can, and I am. Reeves said, Seaside will suspend review pending legal clearance. Legal clearance? Marissa said. Yes. Her voice rose. We have payroll Monday. Reeves did not blink. That's outside this room. Daniel looked at her. You used the boys to push Dad. Marissa pointed at him. Don't you dare act innocent. You wanted that house too. Daniel flinched. That was true enough to hurt him. It did not save her. Truth can be a nail and still not hold the whole wall. I picked up the keys. Marissa's eyes followed them. She said, Walter, don't. I slid them into my pocket. Then I looked at her and said the only sentence I had carried all morning. You needed it more than me. That was your mistake. Her face changed. She remembered her own words. She remembered my kitchen. 3 days after Ellen's funeral. Her smile. Daniel staring at the floor. My thumb turning Ellen's ring while she asked for the keys. The room did the remembering with her. Linda said, This is cruel. I looked at her. Cruel was coaching my son to call me confused. Paul stood. We're leaving. Calvin said, Not before Maureen copies the identification pages for her file notes. Paul said, We don't consent. Maureen's voice stayed professional. These are documents submitted for a closing file. They remain in the file. Reeves added, And Seaside will retain its own copies. Marissa stood so fast her chair hit the wall. You're all acting like I stole something. Daniel said, You tried to pledge what wasn't yours. For us. No, he said. For the loan. She turned on him with wet eyes, but I saw no sorrow there, only panic looking for a softer mask. You'll lose the house without this. Daniel nodded once. Maybe. That word shook him, but he did not take it back. Marissa whispered, You're choosing him. Daniel looked at Ellen's ring on the table. I'm choosing what's real. Linda grabbed her purse. Daniel, think about your children. He looked at her. I am. Paul moved toward the door, but Reeves spoke. Mr. Harrow? Paul stopped. Reeves held up the asset schedule. I need clarification on your certification. Send it to my office. I will. Paul's shoulders tightened. And Mrs. Pike, Reeves said, do not move funds tied to this loan application. Marissa's face drained. Calvin looked at me, but he did not say anything. He did not need to. The $25,000 to Linda had just walked into the room and sat down. Marissa said, "That was business money." Reeves said, "I didn't ask yet." That was the first time he sounded older than he looked. Linda stared at Marissa. "What money?" Daniel closed his eyes. Marissa whispered, "Not now." Linda said, "What money?" Paul opened the door. "Linda." But Linda did not move. For the first time since I had known her, she looked unsure. Not sorry. Just unsure where the floor was. Calvin slid another copy across the table to Maureen. "This is Daniel Pike's statement regarding the coached competency language." Linda snapped, "That's privileged family conversation." Calvin said, "No, it is a signed statement by an adult witness." Maureen placed it in the file. Marissa looked at Daniel like she did not know him. "You signed something?" He met her eyes. "Yes." "You pathetic coward." Nobody spoke for a second. Then Daniel stood. "Don't call me that again." His voice was low. He did not sound brave. He sounded finished. Sometimes that is better. Marissa grabbed her purse and walked out. Paul followed. Linda stayed 1 second longer, staring at me. "You've destroyed your family." I picked up Ellen's ring. "No, I found the crack." Linda left after that. Through the glass wall, I watched them cross the parking lot. Marissa walked ahead of her parents. Paul was talking into his phone before he reached his truck. Linda kept looking back toward the building, as if the room might change its mind without her in it. It did not. Maureen exhaled. "Mr. Pike, I'm sorry that happened here." I said, "It needed witnesses." She nodded once. "It has them." Reeves put the asset schedule into his folder. "Mr. Pike, Seaside Private Capital will treat this as a suspended file. I can't speak beyond that today." Calvin said, "Send all further communication to my office." "I will." Reeves looked at Daniel. "Mr. Pike, you may want independent counsel." Daniel gave a tired nod. "I've heard that today." Maureen left to make copies. Reeves stepped into the hall to place a call. That left me, Daniel, and Calvin in the conference room with Ellen's ring, and the quiet after paper does its work. Daniel sat down slowly. "Dad, I put the ring back in my pocket. Not here." He nodded. Calvin closed the blue folder. "There is one more practical issue." Daniel looked at him. "What?" "The mortgage support stops today. The notice goes out by certified mail." Daniel rubbed his forehead. "I know." I said, "Do you?" He looked at me. "That's $4,700 a month I don't have." "Yes." "And if Marissa drained the account, I'm behind before I start." "Yes." He swallowed. "What do I tell the boys?" "The truth they can carry." "What does that mean?" "It means you don't blame their mother at breakfast. You tell them money is tight and you're fixing it." Daniel's eyes filled again, but he held it. "Will you help me?" I did not answer right away. That was not cruelty. That was engineering. A load placed too quickly can break the same beam you are trying to save. "I will help you find a lawyer," I said. He nodded. "I will help you sort the household numbers." Another nod. "I will not pay through a joint account again." "I understand. And I will not let you hide behind being pushed." He looked down. "I understand that too." Calvin stood and gathered the papers. "Daniel, bring every financial document you have to my Raleigh office Monday morning. I'll refer you to someone who handles domestic and business separation cleanly." Daniel said, "Thank you." Calvin looked at him over his glasses. "Thank me by bringing complete files." Maureen came back with copies and a file receipt. She handed one to Calvin and one to me. "This notes the title hold and the trust restriction." Calvin reviewed it. "Good." She looked at the table. "Mr. Pike, do you want a bag for those keys?" "No." I touched my pocket. "They're fine where they are." When we stepped outside, Marissa's Mercedes was gone. Paul's truck was gone too. Linda's sedan had left a dark oil spot near the curb. I noticed it because I still notice those things. Rear main seal, most likely. An expensive little stain pretending to be nothing. Daniel stood beside his truck. "Can I come by later?" "No." He took that hard. "I need a day without this in my house," I said. He nodded. "Tomorrow?" "Call first." "I will." He opened his truck door, then stopped. "Dad." "Yes." "When Mom did the trust, did she think I'd do this?" "No." That answer seemed to hurt him more than yes would have. I said. She thought someone might use you. He leaned against the truck and covered his face with one hand. I wanted to go to him. I almost did. But a father has to know when comfort becomes another kind of hiding place. So I said, "Drive careful." He nodded without looking up. Calvin walked me to my truck. "You held steady." I didn't feel steady. "That's not required." I looked back at the title office. What happens now? Seaside reviews. Maureen documents. Paul answers questions. Marissa scrambles. And the trust? Still the trust. Good. Calvin put the blue folder under his arm. "Walter, Ellen's letter did exactly what she wanted." I looked toward the road that ran toward the bridge. "No," I said. "The deed did. The letter kept me from hating my son." Calvin did not answer. He had enough sense to leave that alone. I drove to the Atlantic Beach House instead of going back to Beaufort. I had not planned it, but my hands turned the wheel before my head voted. The house sat raised on pilings, gray boards weathered by salt and sun. Ellen had never wanted it polished. She said a beach house should be clean, sturdy, and a little scuffed, or people would be afraid to put their feet up. I parked underneath and sat there with the engine off. For the first time all week, nobody was asking me for anything. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The air smelled closed up, but not stale. Ellen had kept lavender sachets in the linen closet, and that faint smell still made it to the hall. On the kitchen counter sat the old blue ceramic bowl she used for shells the boys brought in. 3 were still in it, 1 broken sand dollar, 2 pieces of smooth white shell, nothing worth money, everything worth keeping. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Daniel. "Marissa says the lender called. She says Paul told her not to answer questions without him. She says Linda wants the $25,000 back from payroll." I read it twice. Then another message came. "I don't know what to do first," I typed back. "Secure the boys, secure the papers, call Calvin Monday, sell the boat." 3 dots appeared, then stopped, then appeared again. He wrote back, "Okay." I put the phone down. Out the back window, the ocean moved under the morning light. I took the keys from my pocket and placed them on the counter. Then I took Ellen's ring out and set it beside them. For 1 minute, I let myself feel the whole weight of the thing. My wife gone, my son bent, my daughter-in-law exposed, my home quiet, my name dragged through words like confused and vulnerable because I had not raised my voice fast enough for greedy people to fear me, confused. That word had followed me from my kitchen to Raleigh to this title office by the beach. It had been their pry bar. They thought if they could wedge it under my age, the whole house would lift. But I had not built my life out of noise. I built it out of paid invoices, recorded deeds, clean ledgers, and promises kept when nobody clapped for them. The phone rang again. This time it was Marissa. I watched her name until it stopped. Then it rang again, then Linda, then an unknown number with a Raleigh area code. I answered that one. Walter Pike. A woman said, "Mr. Pike, this is Karen with Seaside Private Capital Compliance. Is this a good time?" I looked at Ellen's ring on the counter. "Yes." "We need to verify whether you ever authorized Harbor Light Wellness Expansion, LLC, to represent the Atlantic Beach property as available collateral." "No." "Did you sign any consent, letter of intent, or family transfer agreement?" "No." "Did you verbally authorize Mrs. Marissa Pike to list the property?" "No." She paused. "Did anyone from Seaside contact you before today?" "No." Another pause. "Thank you. We may follow up through your attorney." "Do that." I hung up and stood still. That was not the end. I knew better. When a system starts grinding, it throws sparks for a while. But the main shaft had snapped. The loan could not carry itself without the house. At noon, I drove back over the bridge toward Beaufort with the keys in my pocket. The road was bright now, and traffic had thickened with beach people who knew nothing about my family and cared even less. That helped. The world is useful that way. It reminds a man his private storm is not the whole sky. When I reached Ann Street, Daniel was sitting on my porch steps. "I parked and got out. I told you to call first." "I know." He stood. "I didn't come to ask for money." "What did you come for?" He held out a small envelope. "I found this in Mom's old birthday box at my house." I did not take it yet. "What is it?" A card she sent me last year. Why bring it? Because I need you to read what she wrote. I looked at him for a long second. His face was tired in a way I had never seen. Not drunk tired, not work tired, consequence tired. I took the envelope. "Come in," I said. He followed me into the kitchen where this had started with Marissa's smile, and the keys she thought grief had loosened. I set the envelope on the table, but I did not open it yet. Daniel sat where he had sat 3 days after the funeral. This time he looked at me. Daniel took the chair slowly, like he did not trust it to hold him. That was new. My son had always moved fast when he was ashamed. He would talk fast, stand fast, leave fast. This time he sat still. I looked at the envelope. Ellen had written his name on the front in blue ink, Danny. She was the only person who still called him that. I had not used it since he was 15 and asked me not to. Ellen ignored him. She said mothers kept certain rights. "You read it?" I asked. "Just now." "Why now?" He looked at the table. "Marissa told me to find anything from Mom that made it sound like she wanted us to have the beach house." I felt my jaw set. "She said that?" "Yes." "And you looked?" He nodded once. I did. There it was. No varnish, no excuse first. That mattered. I slid my thumb under the flap and opened the card. It was a birthday card with a blue sailboat on the front. Ellen had liked cards from the pharmacy on Front Street. She said expensive cards tried too hard. Inside she had written 6 lines. "My dear Danny, you are still my boy even when you are tired and scared. Do not let anybody turn your father into an obstacle. He has carried more for you than you know. If you ever feel trapped, tell him the truth before someone makes a lie feel easier. Love, Mom." I read it twice. Then I set it flat on the table. Daniel stared at it like the ink could move. "She knew," he said. "She suspected." "About Marissa?" "About pressure." He wiped his face with both hands. "I should have told you." "Yes." He nodded. "I know." The kitchen clock ticked over the sink. Ellen had hated that clock because it ran 5 minutes slow. I had never fixed it because she always corrected it out loud, and I liked hearing her do it. Daniel said, "Marissa called me weak in the parking lot. She has been calling you something for a while. I let it happen." "Yes." He looked up. "Are you going to forgive me?" That was too big a word for that table. People throw forgiveness around when what they really want is relief from consequences. "I don't know yet," I said. He took that without flinching. "I can work with truth," I said. "I can't work with hiding. I'm done hiding. You said that once when you were 22. He gave a tired laugh that had no humor in it. "After the truck loan, the $11,000 you forgot to mention?" I didn't forget. "No, you didn't." He leaned back and shut his eyes. "Dad, I'm in trouble." "I know. I mean, real trouble." "I know that too." He opened his eyes. "The mortgage is 1 payment behind after Monday. The credit line at Coastal First is maxed. Marissa signed my name on 1 clinic vendor guarantee. I don't know how many more." That moved the air in the room. I kept my voice even. "Your name or your signature?" He swallowed. "My name. I don't know about the signature." "Then we find out." "She has the business laptop." "Where is it?" "At the house." "Can you get it?" "I think so." "Don't think. Answer." "Yes." "Good. You go home and get your papers. Mortgage, bank statements, tax returns, business guarantees, insurance, credit cards, and anything with that clinic name on it." "She won't let me." I looked at him until he corrected himself. "She can't stop me from getting my own records." "That's better." His phone rang on the table. Marissa's name filled the screen. He stared at it. "Answer," I said. He looked surprised. "Put it on speaker." He tapped the screen. "Marissa." Her voice came sharp through the little speaker. "Where are you?" "At Dad's." "Of course you are." I said nothing. She said, "Is he there?" Daniel looked at me. I nodded. "Yes." Marissa's breath changed. "Walter, I know you're listening." "You called my son," I said. "I'm calling my husband." "Then talk to him." She went quiet for half a second. Then the old smoothness came back, but it had cracks in it. "Daniel, I need you to come home right now. We have to present a united front." "No." That one word cost him something. I saw it. What did you say? She asked. I said no. Your father is manipulating you. No, Marissa. You don't understand what he did today. I understand enough. Her voice dropped. If this loan fails, payroll fails. If payroll fails, the clinic closes. If the clinic closes, we lose everything. Daniel closed his fingers around the edge of the table. What did you sign? He asked. She did not answer. What did you sign with my name on it? Don't start. Tell me. Your father put that in your head. Tell me, Marissa. Her voice turned cold. You want the truth? Fine. I did what I had to do because you never could. You wanted the bigger house. You wanted the boys in that school. You wanted to look like a pike when all you had was your father's checkbook behind you. Daniel went pale. I watched him breathe through it. He said, Did you sign my name? You gave me authority. When? You don't remember anything when it helps you. I reached across and tapped the table once. Not hard, just enough. Daniel said, I'm coming to get my documents. No, you're not. Yes, I am. If you walk in here like this, I'm calling Paul. Call him. Daniel. He closed his eyes. I'm getting the papers. She laughed once. And then what? You'll run to Calvin Mercer and cry? No, I'll bring complete files. That line almost broke me, not because it was clever, because it was borrowed from a man who had told him the truth an hour earlier, and he had kept it. Marissa heard it too. You're done, she said. Daniel looked at the birthday card. Maybe I am. She hung up. For a while, neither of us moved. Then Daniel said, I'm scared. I know. I don't want the boys seeing this. They already see more than you think. He rubbed both palms on his jeans. What do I say if they ask? You say the adults are sorting money and paperwork. You say they are loved. You don't make them carry your anger. He nodded. Mom would have said that. Yes. He touched the card with 2 fingers. Can I keep it? No. His face fell. You can take a photo, I said. The card stays here for now. Why? Because your wife went looking for words she could use. I won't let Ellen's handwriting become another tool. He looked ashamed again. That's fair. It's necessary. He took the photo and stood. Then he stopped by the back door where Ellen used to keep a basket of old towels for wet feet and leaking coolers. Dad. Yes. Did you ever hate me this week? I wanted to say no. A soft answer would have been easier for both of us. I hated what you let happen in this kitchen. His eyes filled. But you're my son, I said. Those are different loads. He nodded and left through the back door. I watched his truck pull away toward Cedar Street. Then I took Ellen's birthday card and put it in the same recipe drawer where the blue envelope had been. I did not hide it. I placed it under her church cookbook, the one with the broken plastic spine. The phone rang again before I had my hand off the drawer. Calvin. Walter, he said. Are you home? Yes. Good. I just received a notice from Seaside Compliance. They copied me. What does it say? They are requesting all communication related to the proposed family transfer. That was quick. It gets quicker. Paul Harrow sent them a letter blaming Daniel. I looked toward the window. What did he say? He says Daniel represented that you verbally approved the collateral arrangement at a family dinner. That's false. Yes. Which dinner? The one at your house. I almost smiled, not because it was funny, because Paul had stepped on a plank I had already checked. Calvin, I said, I have the note from that dinner. The yellow pad? Yes. Good. Photograph it and send it to me. I wrote down who said what. I know you did. I also wrote the time Linda used the word confused. That may matter. I looked at the kitchen table where Daniel had just sat. Calvin, Daniel is going home for documents. He needs counsel before he confronts too much. He is already past polite. Then tell him to copy, not argue. I will. Calvin paused. There is another issue. Say it. Marissa's clinic account received $25,000 from Linda Harrow's personal account last month. The memo line says consulting advance. That sounds tidy. Too tidy. Seaside asked whether it came from pledged payroll reserves. Can they prove that? Not today, but the question itself changes the room. I understood that. I had spent my life around engines. Sometimes the problem was not the snapped part. It was the metal dust in the oil telling you what was coming next. What do you need from me? I asked. Nothing tonight except the dinner note. Monday, I want you in Raleigh. For what? A short statement. Seaside wants your denial notarized. The title company wants a clean copy for its hold file. Will Marissa be there? Not for your statement. Then why Raleigh? Because if Paul keeps blaming Daniel, Daniel may need you as a witness. I looked at the drawer. He will have me, I said. Within reason. That is the right answer. After we hung up, I photographed the yellow pad. My handwriting was plain. Date, guests, time, food. Not because I cared about the food, but because Ellen used to say menus helped memory. Roast chicken, green beans, potatoes. Linda said Walter is grieving and confused. Paul said family assets should stay productive. Marissa said we already planned around it. Daniel's silent. I sent the photo to Calvin. Then I called Daniel. He answered on the first ring, breathing hard. Where are you? In the driveway. Listen to me. Copy documents. Photograph documents. Don't argue. She locked the office. Is your name on the house? Yes. Then it's your office too, but don't break anything. I have a key. Use it. I can hear her inside. Stay calm. I don't feel calm. That's not required. He went quiet. I heard a car door close through the phone. Then I heard Marissa, faint and sharp. Are you on the phone with him? Daniel said, yes. Of course. I said, keep me on. Daniel's footsteps crossed pavement. A door opened. Marissa came clearer. You are not taking business property. I'm taking my records. Those are clinic records. My name is on the guarantees. You don't even know what a guarantee is. Daniel said, I know enough to read one. Linda's voice cut in from farther away. Daniel, stop this before you embarrass yourself. I stood in my kitchen and listened to the woman who had coached my son to call me confused, now trying to make him doubt his own eyes. Daniel said, move, Linda. Don't speak to me like that. Move. A pause. Then Paul said, son, you need to think carefully. I'm not your son. That was the first clean strike Daniel had thrown all week, and he had thrown it with words. I heard a key enter a lock. Marissa said, if you take that laptop, I'll report it stolen. Daniel said, it's mine. It belongs to Harbor Light. I paid for it from our checking account. You paid for nothing. Something scraped. A drawer maybe. Daniel's breathing got louder. Dad, he said, there are folders. What names? Seaside, Coastal First, Vendor Bridge. Walter, consent. My hand closed around the phone. Photograph every cover. I am. Marissa said, stop taking pictures. Daniel said, no. Paul's voice lowered. Daniel, you're making this worse. No, Daniel said. I helped make it worse already. That shut them up longer than I expected. Then Daniel said, there's a letter. What kind? It has your name? Read the top only. He breathed in. Proposed elder capacity review. My kitchen went very still around me. Linda said, that was never filed. Daniel said, why does it exist? It was a precaution. For what? For protecting the family. Daniel gave a sound I had not heard since he was a boy, hurt but angry under it. He said, you were going to do that to him. Marissa snapped, he was blocking everything. He's my father. He's a 70-year-old man sitting on assets he doesn't need. I did not move. Daniel said, say that again. I'm not performing for your phone. You knew he was listening. Good, she said, then he can hear it. I heard papers being gathered. Daniel said, I'm leaving. Paul said, you walk out with those folders. You'll regret it. No, Daniel said, I already do. The line filled with movement. A door slammed. An engine started. For 10 seconds, all I heard was Daniel breathing and the turn signal clicking. Then he said, Dad, I'm here. They had a folder with your name on it. I heard. I didn't know. I believe you. He broke then, not loud. Just enough that he had to pull the truck over. I'm sorry, he said. That was the one apology scene I could accept because it was tied to paper in his hand, not just shame in his mouth. I know, I said. I should have stood up in your kitchen. Yes. I should have stood up at dinner. Yes. I should have stood up before Mom got sick. I closed my eyes. Leave your mother out of the punishment. He went quiet. That's not me sparing you, I said. That's me protecting her name. I understand. Drive to my house. Don't go home tonight. What about the boys? Where are they? At a friend's until 6. Pick them up, bring them here. They can eat spaghetti. He laughed once through his nose. You hate making spaghetti. Ellen kept jars in the pantry. She'd be mad at the jar. She's not here to supervise. That hurt both of us, but it also let air into the room. By 6:30, my grandsons were at my kitchen table eating spaghetti from white bowls. Owen was 11 and knew enough to watch every adult face. Miles was 8 and still believed hunger solved most trouble. Grandpa, Miles said, why are Dad's papers in a laundry basket? Daniel looked at me. I said, because grown men use the wrong container when they're in a hurry. Owen did not smile. Are Mom and Dad getting divorced? Daniel's fork stopped. I saw him reach for a lie because he wanted to protect the boy. I shook my head once. Daniel put the fork down. I don't know yet. Owen looked at me. Are we losing our house? Daniel's face folded. I answered because Daniel could not. Maybe, but you are not losing your family. Owen stared at his bowl. Mom said you were trying to hurt us. I'm not. Then why is she crying? Because adults made a money mess. Did you? No? Did Dad? Daniel swallowed. Some of it. Owen looked at him. Did Mom? Daniel said, some of it. Miles twirled spaghetti too hard and splashed sauce on the table. Ellen would have wiped it before it set. I let it sit a minute because boys need to know a table can survive sauce. Owen said, can we still go to the beach house? The room caught on that question. I looked at Daniel. Then at Owen. Yes, I said, with me. Not Mom. Not right now. Why? Because the beach house needs quiet rules for a while. Miles said, can I bring my blue bucket? Yes. That was enough for him. It was not enough for Owen, but he nodded anyway. Children learn early which questions have no clean place to land. After dinner, Daniel and I sorted papers at the table while the boys watched an old fishing show in the den. The laundry basket held more trouble than I expected. There was a vendor guarantee for $84,000. Daniel's name was typed under Marissa's. There was a merchant advance for $37,000 at a rate that made my stomach turn. There was a Coastal First credit line statement showing $129,800 drawn. There were 3 unpaid equipment invoices, $19,400, $12,600, $41,000 even. Daniel read each number out loud. His voice got flatter with every page. Then he found the Seaside folder. Inside was a draft family transfer agreement. My name was typed in the first paragraph. Walter Pike, widower, grantor, widower. They had put that word into a business draft before Ellen's flowers had browned on the porch. Daniel looked at me. Dad, I see it. I'm going to be sick. Not on the papers. He laughed because he had to, then covered his mouth. Behind the draft was the Elder Capacity Review page. It had no doctor's signature, no filing stamp, just a template and notes in Linda's handwriting. Walter forgetful since funeral, resistant to family planning, emotionally volatile, possible undue isolation by attorney. I read those words without speaking. Emotionally volatile. I had sat in my own kitchen while they asked for Ellen's house 3 days after we laid her to rest, and I had not raised my voice once. Daniel said, she wrote that. Yes. How can you tell? She writes her 7s with a slash. He stared at me. I repaired engines for 43 years, I said. You think I can't read handwriting? He sat back hard. What happens to her? He asked. I don't know. What do you want to happen? I want her away from my paperwork. That's all? For tonight. He looked down at the folder. You're calmer than I am. No, I'm older. There's a difference. At 8:15, Calvin called again. I put him on speaker. Daniel sat straight when he heard that lawyer voice. Walter, Calvin said. I reviewed the dinner note. Good. Daniel, are you there? Yes, sir. Do you have documents? Yes, sir. A lot. Photograph the capacity review first, then the Seaside folder. Then any guarantee with your name. Daniel looked at me and began sorting. Calvin said, "Do not alter anything. Do not write on anything. Put each set in separate envelopes if you can." "I have Mom's Christmas card envelopes," Daniel said. I looked at him. He looked back. "Sorry." "Use plain folders," Calvin said. I went to the hall closet and found old manila folders from my dock rental files. Paid, vacant, repairs, taxes. Ellen used to tease me for saving them. Nobody was teasing now. Calvin continued, "I have a 9 o'clock slot Monday. Daniel, you'll meet with Rebecca Sloan downstairs at my building. She handles domestic and business exposure." Daniel said, "Can I afford her?" "No," Calvin said. Daniel blinked. Calvin kept going. "Walter can, if he chooses. That will be his decision, with terms." Daniel looked at me. I said, "We'll talk after I see the papers." "That's fair," Daniel said. "Also," Calvin said, "Marissa's counsel may contact you tonight. Do not answer." "She has counsel already?" Daniel asked. "Her father does." That landed. After the call, the boys came into the kitchen. Miles had fallen asleep against Owen's shoulder and denied it with his whole face. "Where are we sleeping?" Owen asked. "Guest room," I said. "Both of you." "That bed squeaks," Miles said. "It's old." "Can we have pancakes tomorrow?" "You can have cereal." Grandma made pancakes. The room went soft around that. I put the seaside folder down. "She did," I said, "and she burned the first one every time." Miles smiled. "She said that one was for practice." It was. Owen looked at the papers on the table. "Was Grandma rich?" Daniel started to answer, but I held up a hand. "Your grandmother was careful," I said. "That's better." "Did she own the beach house?" I looked at Ellen's recipe drawer. "Yes," I said, in the way that mattered. Daniel heard the shape of that answer and did not ask more. Not in front of the boys. After they went upstairs, Daniel stood at the sink washing bowls. He had not washed dishes in my house without being told since he was a teenager. "You don't have to do that," I said. "I know." "Then why?" "Because I can." That was a beginning. A small one, but real beginnings usually are. At 9:30, headlights crossed my front curtains. A car slowed in front of the house, then stopped. Daniel looked toward the window. "Stay here," I said. I went to the porch and opened the door. Marissa stood at the bottom step with her arms folded. Her Mercedes was parked crooked at the curb. Linda sat in the passenger seat face forward. Paul was not there. Marissa looked past me. "I'm here for my children." "They're asleep. They're my sons." "Yes." "Daniel can't just take them. He's their father." Her mouth tightened. "You always do that." "Do what?" "Act like saying something simple makes you right." "Simple helps." She stepped up one stair. "I need to speak with Daniel. He can come out if he wants." Daniel appeared behind me before I could turn. He had the seaside folder in his hand. Marissa saw it. Her face changed first. Then Linda's did behind the windshield. "Give me that," Marissa said. Daniel came onto the porch. "No. That is confidential business material. My name is in it. You had no right to go through my office. Our office. You don't work there. I guarantee debt there." She looked at me. "You're enjoying this." "No." "You've wanted me gone for years." "No," I said. "I wanted you honest." She flinched, but only for a second. Then she lifted her chin. "Fine. Keep the house. Keep your money. Keep your little victory. But when your grandsons ask why their mother lost everything, I'll tell them you did it." Daniel's voice came rough. "Don't use them." She turned on him. "You don't get to tell me that." "Yes," he said. "I do now." Linda opened the car door. "Marissa, stop talking." That was the first wise thing I had heard from her, and it came too late. Marissa did not stop. "She's gone, Walter," she said. "Ellen is gone. You can't keep building a shrine out of everything she touched." Daniel went still beside me. I walked down one porch step, not close enough to threaten, just close enough that she had to look at me. "The house is not a shrine," I said. "It's a promise." Her eyes shone in the porch light. "Promises don't cover payroll." "No," I said. "Collateral does. That was your mistake." Linda said, "Marissa." Marissa stared at me like she wanted one more cruel sentence but could not find one that would help. Then she looked at Daniel. "I'll pick up the boys in the morning." Daniel said, "Call first." That sounded like me. I did not know whether to be proud or sad. Marissa went back to the car. Linda looked at me once through the open door. She did not apologize. She did not explain. She just looked older than she had at lunch. The Mercedes pulled away from Ann Street. Daniel and I stood on the porch until the taillights turned toward Front Street and disappeared. He said, "She's going to fight." "Yes." "Will we win?" "That's the wrong question." "What's the right one? What can we prove?" He held up the folder. "This, and more Monday." He nodded. Inside, I locked the front door. Then I checked the back door. Then I checked the window over the sink because old habits are not fear. They are maintenance. Daniel watched me. "You always checked everything," he said. "Things last longer when checked." He looked at the ceiling, where his boys slept in the room that still had his old baseball glove in the closet. "Can I stay on the couch?" "Yes." "Do I get terms for that too?" I looked at him. He raised one hand. "Bad joke." "No drinking? No calls with Marissa inside the house? No lying to the boys? Tomorrow you make a list of what you owe." He nodded. "Okay." "And Daniel?" "Yes." "You don't get to fall apart and make me manage it for you." He took that one in the chest. "I know," he said. I went to the drawer and took out Ellen's birthday card. I handed it to him. His eyes widened. "You said it stays here." "It does. Read it at the table. Then give it back." He sat down and read his mother's 6 lines again. This time he did not cry. He just held the card carefully, like a man holding a tool he had finally learned not to misuse. When he handed it back, he said, "She told me to tell the truth." "Yes." "I'm late." "Yes." "But not too late." I put the card back in the envelope. "That depends on what you do next." He nodded. "Then Monday, I bring complete files." "Tomorrow," I said. "What?" "Monday is for lawyers. Tomorrow is for sorting." He gave a small nod. "Tomorrow, then." I turned off the kitchen light, but I left the stove light on. Ellen had always done that when family stayed over. She said a dark kitchen made morning feel unfriendly. Before I went upstairs, I stood alone for a moment by the table. The keys were in my pocket. Ellen's ring was there too. In the other room, my son lay on my couch with his life in manila folders beside him. Upstairs, my grandsons slept under the roof their grandmother had loved. Outside, Ann Street was quiet. But quiet was not peace yet. It was just the sound a house makes before the next hard thing knocks. Sunday morning began with cereal, not courage. Miles wanted the blue bowl Ellen used for blueberries. Owen wanted toast because he said cereal got soggy too fast. Daniel stood at the counter reading a coastal first statement like it might change if he stared long enough. It did not change. $129,800 drawn, $31,600 past due, $8,900 in fees. A payment due Monday by 2 o'clock. "Dad," Daniel said, "this says default notice." "I see it. What happens if it defaults?" The bank stopped smiling. He rubbed his face. "That's not an answer. It's the first answer." The boys looked up from the table. Daniel caught himself and lowered his voice. That mattered to me. Not enough to fix anything, but enough to notice. At 9, Marissa called. Daniel let it ring. At 9:03, she called again. At 9:07, Linda called my house phone. I answered. "Walter," Linda said, "this has gone far enough." "It went far enough at my table." "That is not productive." "Most true things aren't." She breathed hard through her nose. "We need the boys. They're eating." "Marissa is their mother." "Yes." "Then stop interfering." "I'm not interfering, I'm feeding them." "Daniel is not stable." Daniel looked at me from the counter. I said, "Say that again." Linda paused. "He's under pressure." "No, you said unstable." "I'm concerned. You wrote I was volatile. Now he's unstable." "Walter, you're making legal threats out of concern." "No, I'm making notes." She went quiet. That is what paper does to people who rely on tone. It levels the deck. Daniel held out his hand for the phone. I passed it to him. He said, "Linda, don't call here about me." "Daniel, your wife is frightened." "So am I." "Then come home and talk." "No." You're letting your father poison you. Daniel looked at the boys, then at the laundry basket, then at me. He said, "You told me to call him confused." I felt that sentence land in the kitchen. Linda said, "That is not fair. You told me to say he wasn't thinking clearly. You were upset. You practiced it with me." Owen stopped chewing. Daniel saw it and shut his eyes. "I'll talk later." He hung up. No one moved for a second. Then Miles said, "Can I have more toast?" I put 2 slices in the toaster because children still need breakfast while adults stand in wreckage. Daniel leaned both hands on the counter. He heard that. Yes. I didn't mean for him to. "You don't get to pick which truth children hear." He nodded once. "I know." Owen pushed his chair back. "Grandpa, were they going to say you were crazy?" The word hit harder from a boy. "No," I said. "And they were going to say I couldn't decide things." "That's the same. Close enough. Can they do that?" "They can try." "Can they do it to Dad?" Daniel looked at his son. I said, "Not if he stands up straight." Daniel swallowed. "I'm trying." Owen said, "Then try faster." That boy had Ellen in him, not her smile, her blade. By 11, Marissa arrived with Paul and Linda in Paul's black Suburban. This time, Marissa did not come to the porch alone. She brought a printed custody calendar, a tote bag, and the kind of face people use when they think paper makes them decent. Daniel met them outside. I stayed behind the screen door. The boys stayed in the den because I told them grown-up talk was not a spectator sport. Marissa said, "I'm taking them home." Daniel said, "They can go with you for the afternoon." "For the afternoon? Then back here tonight." Paul stepped closer. "You don't dictate terms." Daniel looked at him. "I'm their father." Paul smiled without warmth. "You've remembered that lately." Daniel took that one. He deserved some of it. Marissa held up the calendar. "My attorney says I'm entitled to regular access." "Good," Daniel said. "Then use regular words, not threats." Linda looked past him at my door. "Walter, we know you're listening." I opened the screen. "Now you don't have to wonder." Paul said, "This family doesn't need more lawyers." "Then stop giving them work." Marissa's eyes moved to the hallway behind me. She was looking for the papers. People always look for the loose bolt after the machine starts shaking. She said, "Where are my business files?" Daniel answered, "Safe. They're mine. My signature is in them." Paul said, "Your signature is all over documents you did not understand." Daniel's jaw tightened. "That's your defense? That's reality." "No," Daniel said. "Reality is I trusted my wife. Then I trusted you." Marissa flinched at wife more than at anything else. Linda said, "Don't do this in the yard." Daniel looked at her. "You did it in Dad's kitchen." No one had a clean answer. The boys came out with backpacks. Miles carried the blue bucket even though no one was going to the water. Marissa crouched and opened her arms. Miles went to her. Owen stood still. Marissa said, "Owen, are you mad at Grandpa?" Her face changed. She looked at Daniel, then at me. "Adults are handling things. That means yes." "Owen, come here." He did, but slowly. Before they got in the Suburban, Daniel bent down. "I'll see you tonight." Marissa said, "We'll see." Daniel looked at me. I said, "Say it plain." Daniel faced Marissa. "I'll pick them up at 7. Paul laughed once. "From the marital home?" "From wherever they are." Marissa buckled Miles in. "Don't make this uglier." Daniel's voice stayed low. "Then bring them back at 7. The Suburban pulled away. Daniel watched until it turned off Ann Street. He said, "I'm going to lose them too." "Maybe." He looked at me. "I won't lie to you," I said. "You made a weak frame. Now you're loading it." He nodded. "What do I do?" "You show up on time. You tell the truth. You keep records." "That's it?" "That's most of life." Sunday afternoon we sorted until the table looked like a small courthouse. Calvin had me photograph every page with my old phone and Daniel's newer one. Rebecca Sloan called at 2 and spoke to Daniel for 40 minutes in the den. When he came back, he looked 10 years older. She says I may have exposure. Yes. She says I need to cooperate before I defend myself. That sounds right. She says Marissa's loan package lists the beach house at $1,800,000 as available collateral. I kept my hand on the table. Daniel said, "Dad, I heard you. It says family transfer pending, effective Monday. Monday has a way of disappointing people." He sat down across from me. "Did you know?" I knew enough. "What does that mean?" "It means your mother knew more." He looked toward the recipe drawer. I did not explain. Not yet. A man can carry a wrench before he uses it. At 4:30, Calvin called. "Walter," he said, "tomorrow's closing has not been canceled." "Good." Daniel looked at me sharply. Calvin said, "Marissa's lender wants all parties present. The title officer is insisting." "Who's the title officer?" "Joanne Bell." "I know her father." I assumed. "Who else?" "Paul and Linda, Marissa, Daniel, a bank representative named Stuart Hale. Rebecca will be downstairs if Daniel needs her." Daniel whispered, "Why would I need her?" Calvin heard him. "Because people tell different stories when money is dying." Daniel sat back. Calvin continued, "Walter, bring the blue envelope." Daniel's eyes went to mine. I said, "I will." "Do not open it tonight." I wasn't planning to. After the call, Daniel said, "Blue envelope? Your mother's." "What's in it?" "Tomorrow's answer." He shook his head. "Dad, you already have enough guilt. Don't borrow extra. I need to know what I walked into." "No, you need to walk in sober and tell the truth." "I am sober. I mean clear." He looked down at his hands. "Okay." At 7:05, Marissa did not bring the boys back. At 7:10, Daniel called. No answer. At 7:15, he called again. At 7:20, my phone rang. Marissa said, "They're tired." Daniel stood so fast his chair hit the wall. I put her on speaker. "They were promised back at 7. I'm their mother. That sentence is doing a lot of work today. I'm not driving across town because Daniel wants to perform fatherhood." Daniel stepped close. "Marissa, oh good, you're there. Bring them back. They're asleep." Owen's voice came faint through the phone. "I'm not asleep." Marissa went silent. Daniel said, "Put him on." "No." I said, "Marissa, this call is being logged. You record everything now?" "I log everything. Recording has rules." Paul's voice came from the background. "Hang up." Daniel said, 7:30, or I come there." Marissa said, "Don't threaten me." "I'm not. I'm picking up my sons." She hung up. Daniel went for his keys. I took mine off the hook. He said, "I can drive." "I know." "Then why are you coming?" "Because you're angry." "I won't do anything." "I believe you. I still know engines." We drove in my truck. Daniel was quiet the whole way through Beaufort, past houses where porch lights came on one by one. When we reached his street, the Suburban was in the driveway and Marissa's Mercedes was parked behind it, boxing nothing in but pride. Paul opened the door before we knocked. He said, "This is harassment." Daniel said, "I'm here for my boys." Linda appeared behind him. They're unsettled. Owen came down the hall carrying Miles's shoes. "We're ready." That boy had packed them both. Marissa stood at the kitchen entrance. Her eyes were red, but her voice was cold. "You're tearing this family apart." Daniel said, "No, I'm seeing it." Miles came out rubbing his eyes. "Are we going to Grandpa's?" "Yes," Daniel said. Paul pointed at me. "You're proud of this?" "No. You bought this town's respect and now you're buying your son." I looked at his hand. It was soft. No grease in the knuckles. No old scars from slipping wrenches. "I rented Daniel his first apartment," I said. "I covered $12,000 for his truck transmission. I paid $4,700 a month for his mortgage when you said pride mattered. I covered Owen's braces at $6,200. I paid Miles's school deposit at $3,800. That wasn't buying, that was family." Linda said, "Then act like family." "I am." I stopped pretending the bill was love. Marissa's face tightened. "You'll regret tomorrow." Daniel took Miles's backpack. "What happens tomorrow?" She looked at him, then at me. For a second, the room showed its wiring. She knew something was scheduled. She thought I did not know enough. I said, "We'll all find out." We left with the boys. Nobody touched anyone. Nobody shouted. That was important. When a thing is going to court, clean hands matter. Monday morning, I put on the gray suit Ellen liked and the navy tie she hated. She said it made me look like a bank lobby. I wore it anyway because bank lobbies were where some people learned manners. The blue envelope rode inside my jacket pocket. Ellen's ring rode in my pants pocket. I did not open either one before I left. Daniel followed me in his truck. Calvin had told us not to ride together because separate arrivals make separate witnesses. That is the kind of small instruction I respect. It sounds like nothing until it saves you. The title office sat near Atlantic Beach, not far from where tourists bought sunscreen and forgot the ocean could take a roof if it wanted. Joanne Bell had a conference room with glass walls, a long table, and a bowl of peppermints nobody touched. Marissa was already there. She wore cream linen and a gold bracelet I had seen in a credit card statement for $1,900. Paul sat beside her in a blue blazer. Linda had a folder in her lap and one hand on Marissa's arm. Stuart Hale from the lender sat across from them with a tablet and a thin smile. Calvin stood when I entered. Walter? Calvin? Joanne came around the table. Mr. Pike, I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. Marissa looked at my jacket pocket. Did you bring the keys? I took them out. The Atlantic Beach key was brass, worn smooth at the edges. Ellen had tied a green thread through it years ago because she hated guessing. I set the keys on the table. Marissa smiled. There it was again. 3 days after the funeral, then Monday morning at a closing table. Same smile. Same bad rhythm. Daniel came in last. He sat near the door, not beside Marissa. Paul noticed. That's dramatic. Daniel said, "It's a chair." Joanne cleared her throat. We're here to review a proposed family transfer and collateral acknowledgement connected to the bridge facility for Harbor Light Wellness. Calvin said, "Before anything is signed, I need the record clear." Stuart tapped his tablet. "We have a family asset statement and transfer intent." "From whom?" Calvin asked. Stuart looked at Marissa. "From Mrs. Pike." Calvin turned one page. "Which Mrs. Pike?" Marissa said, "Me." Calvin nodded. "You are not the owner of the Atlantic Beach property. It's a family property. That is not a legal category." Linda leaned forward. Walter agreed in principle. I said nothing. Marissa looked at me. "You said you'd look at the papers." I did. "And?" I looked. Stuart's smile faded a little. "Mr. Pike, are you declining to proceed?" Paul cut in. "Walter has been confused since Ellen passed. He's emotional. We've been trying to protect continuity." Calvin looked at him. "Protect continuity?" Paul said, "The family had an understanding." Daniel spoke then. "No, we didn't." Marissa turned on him. "Daniel." He shook his head. "No." Linda whispered, "Careful." Daniel looked right at her. "You told me to call him confused." The room went still. Joanne put her pen down. Linda said, "That's not what happened." Daniel's voice shook, but he kept going. "You practiced it. You said Dad would respond better if I sounded worried." Paul said, "This is private." Calvin said, "Not anymore." Marissa stood halfway. "This is ridiculous. Walter, tell them you knew we needed the house." I looked at the keys on the table. "You needed it more than me," I said. "That's what you told me." Her eyes flashed. "Because it's true." Calvin reached into his leather folder. "Joanne, I have the recorded deed and trust instrument." Marissa sat down. Stuart said, "Trust instrument." Calvin placed a certified copy on the table. Then he looked at me. I took the blue envelope from my jacket and set it beside the keys. Marissa stared at it. "What is that?" I said, "Ellen." Calvin opened the envelope with a letter opener, not tearing, not rushing. A good lawyer handles paper like it might be the floor under your feet. Inside was the recorded deed packet and Ellen's folded letter. Calvin did not read the letter, not then. He read the deed. "This instrument conveys the Atlantic Beach property into the Ellen Pike Coastal Trust, recorded in Carteret County 2 years ago." Marissa whispered, "No." Calvin continued, "Trustee, Walter Pike, settler, Ellen Pike, beneficiary protections as stated." Paul said, "That can't override family consent." Calvin looked at him. "There is no family consent." Stuart leaned forward. "Read the restriction." Calvin put one finger on the page. "No transfer, lien, occupancy assignment, encumbrance, pledge, or sale of the Atlantic Beach property shall occur during Walter Pike's lifetime, without Walter Pike's notarized written consent." Joanne reached for the document. Calvin let her take it. Stuart looked at Marissa. Your package listed this as available collateral. Marissa's face had gone pale. Based on expected transfer. Joanne said, from a trust? We were told it was Walter's. Calvin said, by whom? Stuart turned his tablet toward the room. The asset statement is signed by Marissa Pike. Daniel closed his eyes. Marissa said, I signed what your office prepared. Stuart's voice cooled. We prepared from your disclosures. Paul stood. This meeting is over. Joanne said, Mr. Whitcomb, sit down. He did not like that. Men like Paul dislike being given simple instructions by women holding the official file. Joanne kept reading. This title cannot close. I'm flagging the file. Marissa pointed at me. You set me up. No, I said. Ellen set the house down where you couldn't grab it. That house was supposed to help this family. It did, for years. You don't need it. I picked up the keys. You needed it more than me, I said. That was your mistake? No one spoke for a moment. Then Stuart said, Harbor Lights Bridge facility is frozen pending review. Marissa gripped the table. You can't do that. I can, Stuart said. I just did. Paul said, we'll challenge the trust. Calvin looked almost tired. You may try. Linda's folder slid from her lap to the floor. Paper spilled across the carpet. One page landed near Daniel's shoe. He bent and picked it up. His face changed. What is it? I asked. He read the header. Borrower certification supplement. Marissa snapped. Give that back. Daniel looked at Stuart. My signature isn't on this. Stuart held out his hand. May I see it? Daniel gave it to him. Stuart read for 10 seconds. This lists Daniel Pike as consenting spouse. Daniel said, I never saw it. Marissa said, it was administrative. Calvin said, that is a dangerous word. Joanne stood. I'm making copies. Paul reached for the paper, but Stuart moved it behind his tablet. Don't, Stuart said. That one word did more than a shout. Linda sat frozen in her chair. Marissa looked at her mother then, not at Paul, at Linda. So that was another seam. Daniel saw it too. He said, Mom told me Dad was confused. You told the bank I consented. Marissa said, I was trying to save our life. No, he said, you were trying to spend it. She stared at him like he had struck her. He had not. He had only stood where his words could be seen. Joanne returned with 2 copies and a red file stamp. This attempted transfer is halted. Mr. Hale, you'll receive my written notice by end of business. Stuart nodded. Thank you. Paul gathered his coat. We're leaving. Calvin said, Walter, not yet. I stayed seated. Marissa stood. You can keep your little beach house. I looked at the keys in my palm. I will. It won't bring Ellen back. Daniel rose so fast his chair scraped. I lifted one hand. He stopped. That was enough for me. Not because her words did not hurt, they did. I just did not need to feed them. I said, Ellen isn't the one who's gone from this room. Marissa's mouth opened, but nothing useful came out. Paul took her arm. Linda followed them to the door with her folder clutched against her chest. At the glass wall, Linda turned back. Walter, she said. I waited. She looked at Daniel, then at me. We thought he'd sign. That was the first true sentence she had given me. Calvin said, Who is we? Linda's lips pressed together. Paul said, Linda. She turned away. The door closed behind them. Stuart packed his tablet. Mr. Pike, I'll need copies from counsel. Calvin said, You'll have them. Stuart looked at me. I'm sorry this came through my office. Money moves fast when nobody checks the bilge. He blinked once. I'll remember that. After he left, Joanne handed the keys back across the table. I put them in my pocket. Daniel was still standing near the spilled papers. He looked like a man who had watched a bridge wash out with his truck halfway across it. Dad, he said, not here. He nodded. Calvin folded Ellen's letter back into the blue envelope without reading it. I said, leave it out. He looked at me. Read the first line, I said. Calvin unfolded it. His voice softened, but he kept it steady. Walter, if they are reading this without me, it means somebody forgot that love is not a deed you hand over. Daniel covered his mouth. I took the letter from Calvin and folded it myself. That's enough. Joanne looked away. Calvin put the certified copy back in his folder. Outside, the sun was hard on the parking lot. Marissa's Mercedes was still there, but she was inside it with Paul and Linda. None of them looked toward me. Daniel stood beside my truck. "I didn't know about the supplement," he said. "I believe that. I knew about the plan, not the fake consent." That sentence matters. To who? To Rebecca, to Calvin, to your boys. Maybe to you. He nodded and wiped his face with both hands. "I have to tell Owen," he said. "Yes. He's 11. He already knows adults lie. Give him one who stops." Daniel looked across the lot at the Mercedes. "What happens to Marissa?" "That belongs to Marissa now." "What happens to me?" "That depends on what you carry and what you put down." He looked at me. "Can I still come to Ann Street tonight?" "Yes." "With the boys?" "Yes." "And after?" "We'll talk terms." He almost smiled, but it failed. Always terms. Terms keep love from turning into a blank check. Calvin came out then and handed me a folder. "Walter, I need you in Raleigh later this week for cleanup signatures." "I'll be there." "Today go home. Do not answer calls from Paul or Linda." "Daniel, Rebecca is waiting." Daniel looked at me. I said, "Go." He went back inside. I sat in my truck for a minute before I started it. The blue envelope lay on the seat beside me. Ellen's ring was in my pocket. The keys were there too, heavier now that everyone had watched them fail to move. My phone buzzed, a text from Marissa. "You ruined us." I read it twice. Then I put the phone face down and drove back toward Beaufort, because there were boys to feed, papers to file, and one more bill I had been paying that nobody had thanked me for in years.